Chapter 3302. It had been 1.5 months since the Gooeys did anything, which put the patriarchs of Reaper's mind at ease. If they didn't do anything before, then they wouldn't have the guts to do it later. After a month, the godly medicine began to bear fruit. After a month and a half, the fruit had already ripened. It could be picked in 2 days. But today there was a sudden movement from the Gooey race outside. Bang! Yu Yang saw a battleship coming from the distance, and he sensed many powerful warriors. Yu Yang crushed a jade talisman, and Lu Li used psychic power to check. What? Lu Li sensed a familiar energy on that battleship. He frowned and put on a cold expression. He dashed out, looked at the herb, and asked, "Can I pick it now?" "Yes, it can," a patriarch said, "but there aren't many ripe seeds now. I wish we could wait for another couple of days." "Pick it," Lu Li said in a firm tone. Now, Lu Li had established absolute authority in their minds. One of the patriarchs took out a jade bottle without hesitation and put away the herb. Then, he gave it to Lu Li with both hands. Lu Li didn't refuse. It was safer for him to carry the fruit. He turned to the others and said, "They have invited a young master of the Gooeys. If something goes wrong, come into my interspatial artifact, and I will take you away." "Yes." The Saint Emperors bowed. Lu Li waved his hand, and Yu Yang took out the battleship. All the Saint Emperors boarded, and the battleship flew away from the island. Before the battleship could fly off, it was stopped by groups of soldiers. At the same time, several dozen Saint Kings flew over and surrounded the battleship. A Saint King from the Gooey clan raised his hand and said, "You can't leave. Leave the item behind." Lu Li stood on the deck, paying no attention to the patriarch. He looked at the battleship that was flying over. On the deck stood a young master in a luxurious robe. Behind the young master stood a row of powerful warriors of the Gooeys. All of them were Saint Emperors. There were at least 10 of them. "Ha ha ha." The young master laughed before he got close. His laughter was hearty and warm, as if he was talking to an old friend from afar. The battleship flew over. The young master cupped his fists and said, "Greetings, Inspector Lu." Lu Li nodded and said, "How are you, young Master Wei? What's your relationship with Miss Yuan?" "That's my cousin." Young Master Wei smiled and said, "I heard that Patrol Inspector Lu saved my cousin in the Great Desolation Valley." "Thank you, Patrol Inspector Lu." Lu Li shrugged his shoulders and asked, "Young Master Wei, why are you here?" Young Master Wei maintained his smile and said, "I came for a divine medicine. The king of the Goo race said that they had a divine medicine here, and they sold it to me. That's why I came to get it." As expected, Lu Li grinned. The Guam race did not have the courage to challenge him or come to take the herb. But they were not willing to give up just like this. Therefore, they came up with a way to annoy Lu Li. By giving the elixir to a race that could afford to provoke Lu Li, there was no doubt that the Guam race could afford to provoke Lu Li. Lu Li shook his head and said, "Young Master Wei, I am sorry. First of all, we, the god of death, found the elixir first. Second, I have collected the elixir, so I cannot give it up." Young Master Wei's smile was still there. He was not angry. He said with a smile, "This is the territory of the Guam race. Theoretically speaking, everything here belongs to the Guam race. I have paid the celestial stones, so the elixir must be mine. If you insist on not giving it to me, then I will take it as a provocation to the Guam race. I don't want that to happen. I really want to be friends with Patrol Inspector Lu." The smile on Lu Li's face disappeared. He said coldly, "Once at the Great Desolation Valley, if it weren't for me, your forefather wouldn't have been able to be buried in his homeland. I even saved your Miss Jiayuan, but Miss Jiayuan repaid evil with kindness. Are all of you Gooeys so unreasonable? I'm not interested in being friends with the Guam race. Don't pretend. If you want the elixir, just come and take it. Of course, once you make a move, I can't guarantee that nothing will happen." Lu Li's sudden outburst made Yu Yang and the others speechless. This was the Guam race, the most powerful race in the Chaotic Star region. A well-deserved leader was going to fight the Guam race. Even though they didn't know what would happen to the god of death, at the very least, they would not win, and they would suffer a great loss. "Ha ha ha." Young Master Wei laughed. The smile on his face disappeared as well. He said coldly, "Lu Li, you are as arrogant as the rumors say. Do you think you are the master of the entire chaotic star region now that you have conquered the Hu race and the Langding race? You think you can do whatever you want? The Guam race is different. You cannot afford to offend the Guam race. Whether or not I can afford to offend you, you can try." Lu Li's interspatial artifact glowed. Yu Yang and the others were taken in. Lu Li crooked his finger and said, "Come on. If you want the elixir, then kill me first. But let me be frank. I will not care about anyone that is my enemy. I will kill them first. Young Master Wei, the Infinity Island has good feng shui. I think it is a good place to bury you." As soon as Lu Li finished his words, the atmosphere became solemn and hostile. Warriors nearby stepped back slowly, as if they were afraid that they would be torn apart by the powerful warriors if they stayed any longer. Killing intent rose from young Master Wei. He raised his hand slowly and stared at Lu Li. The Saint Kings behind him unsheathed their weapons as well. They were waiting for young Master Wei's order so that they could tear Lu Li apart. The powerful warriors of the Guam race were excited. Their master had some dealings with this young Master Wei. This time, he had invited young Master Wei here to win back the honor. As long as young Master Wei and Lu Li fought, no matter what the outcome would be, at least the Guam race would regain their dignity. Of course, they were nervous as well. If young Master Wei were to die here, they wouldn't know how to answer to the Guam race when they were questioned. But did Lu Li have the courage to kill young Master Wei? If he did, not only would the Guam race kill him, but the god of death would also be wiped out. Charge. In the end, young Master Wei still swung his hand forcefully. 8 of the 10 Saint Kings behind him charged out, charging at Lu Li like sharp swords. Their brutal gazes caused the hearts of the Gue soldiers to palpitate. Buzzing, Lu Li vanished without a trace. It was as if he had vanished from this world. The battleship he was on was blasted into smithereens by several powerful warriors. The space nearby trembled violently as well. However, Lu Li did not come out. He had vanished completely. The 8 Saint Emperors immediately looked around and attacked in all directions to see if Lu Li was hiding nearby. This way, they could shake Lu Li out of hiding. Find him. After a while, Lu Li was nowhere to be found. The 8 Saint Kings began to search in all directions at once. As soon as they left, Lu Li showed up. He even released his bloodline skill, Dragon Transformation. He transformed into a sharp sword and dashed towards young Master Wei madly. End of this chapter. Chapter 3303. The Gue race did not lack divine medicines. They even had the best divine medicines. The Gue clan would not clash with the death god over a divine herb. If the leader of the Gue clan was that stupid, no matter how strong the Gue clan was, they would have been exterminated long ago. Therefore, it was obvious that young Master Wei had come on his own accord. The higher-ups of the Gue race did not know about it. It was not hard to speculate why young Master Wei was here. For one thing, the Guam race must have come to him. For another, young Master Wei did not like Lu Li. Or maybe, young Master Wei wanted to defeat Lu Li and win a reputation of being unparalleled. Lu Li figured it out on a second thought. Therefore, he didn't want to waste time with young Master Wei. He made his decision, and young Master Wei gave the order to take action. Lu Li was ready to take action. His goal was clear. Naturally, he would not go after the Guis. In that case, even if the Gue race didn't want to become enemies with the Grim Reaper, they would probably be forced to do so. At the very least, a great battle was inevitable. Lu Li had just been promoted. He was not afraid of the Guis, but he did not want to create trouble for the god of death. Right now, he wasn't alone. He had the Lu family and the Lu alliance behind him. If he caused too much trouble for the Grim Reaper, he didn't know if he would die or not, but at least Lu Meng's life would be very difficult. Thus, his goal was very clear. He wanted to either heavily injure or capture young Master Wei. That way, the battle would naturally end. If the Gue race could see his determination, they would not have to fall out with him. Actually, the Saint Emperors that young Master Wei brought with him weren't all that strong. Even if there were a dozen of them, he was confident that he could heavily injure young Master Wei. However, if he did that, he would probably be heavily injured and he might not be able to control himself and kill one or two Gui experts. He entered the Dharma realm and let this group of experts spread out to search. This way, he would have a very suitable opportunity. This was the best time to strike. He was not far from young Master Wei, and he used purple godly elixir to cast a spirit formation technique. Young Master Wei stopped moving. Not good. The two Guam warriors behind him were startled to see Lu Li charging at them. They tried to stop Lu Li from moving forward. One of the Saint Emperors shouted, "Young Master, step back." Young Master Wei was struck by a spiritual formation technique, so he couldn't retreat even if he wanted to. Facing their attacks, Lu Li had no intention of dodging. He took the two attacks head-on and then grabbed young Master Wei's neck with his sharp claws. The two Saint Emperors wanted to attack again, but when they saw Lu Li grabbing onto young Master Wei, they didn't dare to move. The attacks from the two powerful warriors made many scales fall off from Lu Li's left shoulder and waist. He spat out blood, but he didn't care. He looked at young Master Wei coldly and said, "All right, the battle is over." Whoosh, the other darks flew over and surrounded Lu Li. But none of them dared to attack, fearing that young Master Wei's head would explode if Lu Li acted rashly. The Gui experts were also frightened. If young Master Wei was really killed, they would be in trouble. Young Master Wei woke up, but he did not panic. He was a shrewd man, and he had seen a lot of things. He stared at Lu Li and said, "Lu Li, kill me if you have the guts. Don't worry, I won't kill you." Lu Li said calmly, "Killing you won't do me any good, and I will get into some trouble. But if I can bring you back to the god of death and let the Gui race ransom you, I think I can make some celestial stones. What do you think?" Young Master Wei's expressions changed. Lu Li's move was vicious. If young Master Wei was captured, the god of death and the Gui race might go to war, but his reputation would be ruined. From then on, he would not be able to hold his head up high in the Chaotic Star region. The powerful warriors of the Gui race would feel that he had brought shame to the Gui race. Not only would he be unable to hold his head up high in the Gui race, his future cultivation resources and status would be reduced. By then, his life would be over. The panic in young Master Wei's eyes made Lu Li even more certain that this was not the idea of the Gui race. This was just young Master Wei acting on his own. Lu Li smiled and said, "Young Master Wei, we have no quarrel. Why do we have to fight to the death? Why don't we just pretend that this never happened and just laugh it off? Let go." Young Master Wei flew into a rage out of humiliation. He put on a ferocious expression and said, "Lu Li, in your dreams. Either you kill me or I will pay you back 100 times over. How can I establish myself in the Chaotic Star region if I don't tear you into pieces? Then there is nothing to talk about." Lu Li shrugged and said, "Since you are so immature, then I will take you back to the headquarters of the God of Death and ask your parents to come and take you back." Whoosh! Lu Li ignored the powerful warriors around him. He just carried young Master Wei and flew forward. A Saint King was about to stop him when Lu Li lifted young Master Wei up and smashed at him. The Saint King was so scared that he dodged to the side. Buzzing, Lu Li's hand glowed. The strange energy in his body entered young Master Wei's body and sealed up his pellet. Lu Li didn't even look at young Master Wei. He dashed forward as if he was carrying a dead dog. There were many warriors and armies in front of him, but would they dare to attack Lu Li when he was charging at them? Instead, they stepped to the sides in fear, fearing that they might accidentally hurt young Master Wei. "Inspector Lu," a patriarch of the Guam race, said, "Wait, I think we could talk about this." Several patriarchs of the Guam race sent a message to young Master Wei as well. If young Master Wei was really captured by Lu Li and taken to the Tianyu city, then the Guam race would be humiliated. There were many Guam race warriors here, but as long as Lu Li gave the order to keep quiet, the news would not spread. Even if it did, the impact would not be so bad. The Guam race, the most powerful race in the Chaotic Star region, had a young master of their immediate family captured by the God of Death and imprisoned in the Tianyu city. In the end, the leader of the Guam race had to step in to bring him back. Young Master Wei was persuaded by the patriarchs. He said, biting his teeth, "All right, Lu Li, you win. Let me go and I will write it off." "Are you sure you want to write it off?" Luli looked at him with a smile and said, "What if you seek revenge? I don't trust the Guam race. What if you assassinate me?" "I won't," young Master Wei said with righteousness. "My words carry enormous weight, and I am a man of my word. If I break my promise, I will die a horrible death." "That is not good enough." Luli put on a wicked smile and said, "You have to swear that if you break your promise and come after me, I will let Lady Yuan marry the lowliest of the boar race." "You are so shameless." Young Master Wei flew into a rage. "I cannot do that. If my cousin knows, she will tear me apart. If you don't break your promise, then nothing will happen." Luli shrugged and said, "Even though the Guam race has so many warriors here, I don't think they have the guts to spread your word. Hurry up, I don't have that much patience." "You win." Seeing that Luli was about to fly away again, young Master Wei made up his mind. He would ask the Guam race to keep this a secret. Everything would be fine as long as Lady Yuan didn't learn about it. Good. After young Master Wei made the oath, Luli took out his stamp stone with his other hand and said, "I have recorded everything that happened just now. If you dare to make trouble for me later, the image in this stamp stone will be broadcast to the entire Chaotic Star region." Whoosh! Luli swung his hand forcefully and threw young Master Wei over. Following that, his body glowed as he disappeared into the north at a terrifying speed. The group of Saint Emperors behind him could only stare, tongue-tied. There was no way they could catch up with Luli. "Ah!" Young Master Wei screamed in rage. "Luli, I will cut you into pieces. I will tear you into pieces. I swear, I swear." "Ha! Ha! Ha!" Luli's laughter came from the distance. "You swore that you would let your cousin marry the boar race. Your promise is no different from fart." End of this chapter. Chapter 3304. Luli left and went to a nearby universe. Then, he teleported back to the heaven-crossing universe with Yu Yang and the others. There was no news from the Guam race. Clearly, young Master Wei was acting on his own, and Luli didn't kill any powerful warriors of the Guam race. Therefore, young Master Wei was at a disadvantage. Back at the Lu mansion, Luli resumed his leisurely life. He planned to rest for a year or two and think about his future. At the same time, he wanted to ask Sovereign of Wings or the other powerful warriors to give him some guidance in cultivation. Luli's abilities had improved by leaps and bounds. He was strong now, and he could defeat anyone below the level of a warrior that was infinitely close to the perfect completion. That being said, he relied more on his strong body, soul attacks, purple divine liquid, and perishing divine liquid. Relying on external forces was not the way to go. Luli knew this very well. But what else could he do? He was confused. He felt he had reached the peak of the cultivation of his body and soul. It would be difficult for him to continue to improve his abilities. At this rate, he might never be able to reach the level of a warrior that was infinitely close to the perfect completion in his lifetime, let alone the perfect completion. What was the perfect completion? That was when one reached the flawless realm in a certain aspect. However, that was basically a certain type of true intent. If one comprehended all the true intent of a certain type of true intent, they would reach the level of great perfection. They would be able to completely fuse with the world and possess incomparably powerful might. Could one reach the perfect completion in the cultivation of body? Could one reach the perfect completion in the cultivation of soul? Luli didn't know. At least, he had never heard of it. There was no record of it in history. Luli rested and cultivated for over a month. Then, he went to the library of the Grim Reaper and began to read the books. He mainly read the notes and cultivation experiences left behind by the powerful warriors in order to find his own path of cultivation. The Grim Reaper's library was huge. There were probably millions of books in there. As an inspector, Luli had access to all the books in the library. He had stayed in the library for more than 2 months, and he didn't know how many books he had read. His knowledge had increased a lot, but it wasn't of much use to his cultivation. He had to go to Sovereign of Wings. King of Wings received Luli in a hall. Luli stated the purpose of his visit and asked for guidance from King of Wings. Sovereign of Wings thought about it for the time, for one incense stick to burn, and said, Luli, you have been on the wrong path from the very beginning. It is not impossible to go back to the path of fundamental principle, but you have to focus. I think it will take you at least 10,000 years to reach your current abilities by relying on fundamental principle. Then, after spending tens of thousands of years, I reckon that it will be infinitely close to the great perfection realm. The avian monarch had lived for more than 300,000 years. He had been infinitely close to the consummate realm for more than 100,000 years. Hence, his suggestion was very sincere and was very worth accepting. Luli, on the other hand, was troubled. It would take tens of thousands of years. Could he be infinitely close to the ultimate realm? If he couldn't achieve it, then these tens of thousands of years would have been wasted. Luli thought about it and asked, Emperor of Wings, can I have a chance to be infinitely close to the complete realm by cultivating my body and soul? Extremely difficult. Emperor of Wings said with certainty, even if you collect all the top-level elixirs and cultivate for 1,000 years, you will not be able to reach this realm. To reach this realm, you must be recognized by heaven and earth. It is hard to transform just by relying on your body. It is the same with soul. To be infinitely close to the perfect realm, you must be partially recognized by heaven and earth and be in harmony with heaven and earth. Emperor of Wings added after some thoughts. For example, your art of hiding is amazing, but powerful warriors that are infinitely close to the perfect realm can find you. Do you know why? It is because we are recognized by heaven and earth. We are sensitive to heaven and earth. Average warriors borrow the power of heaven and earth. At our realm, we can mobilize part of the power of heaven and earth. When we reach the perfect realm, we can control the power of heaven and earth. Borrow, mobilize, control. Luli understood now. Those were three completely different realms. At the end of the day, warriors relied on the power of heaven and earth to refine their bodies and cultivate their spiritual energy and origin energy. Without Xianxi in heaven and earth, life could not be born and living things could not exist, let alone cultivation. In order to gain strength, warriors must find a way to use the power of heaven and earth. Average warriors borrowed the power of heaven and earth. Warriors infinitely close to the perfect realm used the power of heaven and earth to mobilize the power of heaven and earth. Warriors at the perfect realm used the power of heaven and earth to control the power of heaven and earth. How to gain the recognition of heaven and earth. This was complicated, but usually it would be easier to gain the recognition of heaven and earth by studying fundamental principles and laws of heaven and earth. After all, the more you learn the laws of heaven and earth, the more profound you would be and the easier it would be for you to gain the recognition. Luli was a bit upset. He frowned in silence. Emperor of Wings took a sip of tea and said, after a moment of silence, actually, there's another way. Maybe there's a chance. What is it? Li's eyes glowed. If he could prove himself with his body or soul, then he wouldn't bother to cultivate fundamental principles. It would take him tens of thousands of years, and he might not be able to reach his current abilities. Why should he waste his time and energy? Let's go to the immortal region. Emperor of Wings said solemnly, the immortal region is a miraculous place. It is the most treasured land in the world. There are endless possibilities there. Many miracles had happened there, and countless legendary stories had happened there. Of course, it is dangerous as well, thousands of times more so than the chaotic star region. Luli didn't expect that Emperor of Wings was talking about the immortal region. Was the immortal region so dangerous? There must be dead bodies everywhere in such a dangerous place. Could it still be called the immortal region? Was it not hell? Luli once had a key to the immortal region, but it was destroyed in the eye of destruction. But he didn't feel bad about it. He was tired of the life of a vagabond, tired of a lonely, wandering life. He just wanted to live a comfortable life, to see his family well, and to see the Lu alliance grow. After a moment of silence, Luli asked, that is to say, the chance of survival in the immortal region is less than 10%? Emperor of Wings, have you ever been to the immortal region? Yes. Emperor of Wings nodded. I'm not the only one. The other powerful warriors have all been there. But some of them died. The ones we have now were added later. Over the past 300,000 years, more than 50 powerful warriors who were infinitely close to the consummate level of the god of death went in. Only a dozen came out. Over the past 10,000 years, about 10,000 Saint Kings have entered the immortal region, but less than 1,000 have come out. Less than 10%. Luli nodded. He didn't think about it anymore. He could not go to the immortal region. Even powerful warriors infinitely close to the consummate level of the god of death could die in there. Luli's chance of survival would be even lower. Besides, he didn't have the key to the immortal region anymore. Remember the mobile website. Chapter 33, 10 Going to the Immortal Region, page 1/1. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 33:05. Luli bid farewell to Emperor of Wings and went back to the Lu mansion. The birth of Lu Hua brought new joy to the Lu family. Lu Hua was a handsome, smart, and adorable boy. Lu Renwang was embarrassed, so he went into closed-door cultivation after several months. Luli's wives and concubines took turns to take care of Lu Hua. Lu Hua was given a top-level training plan based on the highest standards of the Yu family. Since he was a kid, Lu Hua had been drinking top-level liquid and bathing in medicine. His room was equipped with powerful spirit-gathering formation, and he was fed with top-level fruits every day. Therefore, Lu Hua was talented. If everything went smoothly, Lu Hua would reach the 4th or 5th tribulation realm in his teens. He would surely reach the Emperor realm. Whether he could reach the Saint Emperor realm would depend on his luck. As an inspector, Luli had many privileges. What was more, the Lu family was not in need of celestial stones and resources. Therefore, Lu Hua's growth should be predictable. As Lu Li's younger brother, Lu Hua would be a young master of the god of death. It would be easy for him to marry a descendant of a powerful warrior. Of course, it would be up to Lu Hua if he could marry a young lady of the immediate family. The management of the Tianlu boundary wasn't bad, and the disciples of the Lu Union were growing very quickly. Everything was developing in a good direction. The only thing that troubled Lu Li was the improvement of his abilities. In order to stabilize the Lu family, Lu Li must find a way to reach the complete realm. Then, when a warrior of the god of death passed away or retired, Lu Li could take the place of the warrior. By then, the Lu family would be in a stable position. Of course, the leaders of the Lu alliance were satisfied with the current situation. Qi Wangshan had secretly gone back to the Middle King realm. Lu Li had arranged for 2 Saint Emperors to protect him. Their purpose was to bring back a batch of elixirs and another batch of talented warriors. The Heavenland realm was large enough to accommodate millions of warriors from the Middle King realm. Of course, Lu Li would not transfer so many warriors over. At most, he would bring tens of thousands of talented disciples. Once they grew up, they would be able to take root here. When some warriors grew old and bored, they would be sent back. In this way, a virtuous cycle could be formed and the Middle King realm could grow stronger. The Middle King realm was Lu Li's hometown. The overall strength of the Middle King realm was too weak. Any small race here could destroy the Middle King realm. Lu Li could not keep an eye on them all the time. Therefore, he had to find a way to make them stronger as a whole, independent and self-reliant. Lu Li went into closed-door cultivation. While he was refining his body, he was cultivating his soul, and, at the same time, he was thinking about the path of cultivation. After a year of seclusion, the growth of his fleshly body had become extremely slow. His soul, on the other hand, was still growing. However, the growth rate had also slowed down. Lu Li thought about it for a year and finally decided to stop cultivating. He was afraid that he would be possessed by the devil if he stayed in closed-door cultivation. He really couldn't think of any other way to increase his combat strength. It was almost impossible to get infinitely close to the great perfection realm. Lu Li came out from closed-door cultivation. He stayed at the Lu mansion for 2 days, and then he went out to have a drink with Yu Yang. Yu Yang happened to be at the Tianyue city, and he didn't go out or cultivate. He was happy that Lu Li was here. He brought Lu Li to the best restaurant in the city. There were beauties dancing and musicians singing. The atmosphere was very joyous. Luli didn't think too much. He just drank and watched the dancing leisurely, stealing a moment of leisure. The atmosphere in the pavilion was intense. Since Luli had disguised himself, none of the warriors in the pavilion knew him. Yu Yang was a regular here, and he was an amiable guy. Therefore, the atmosphere in the hall was quite relaxed. Everyone was drinking their own wine. Rustle, rustle, rustle. From outside came some noises of footsteps. Following that, several young masters in luxurious robes walked in. As soon as they came in, Yu Yang frowned. He sent a message to Lu Li. Li Heng is here. Li Heng? Lu Li squinted and looked at the young masters. They were all at the Saint's sovereign realm. One of them was a young master in a black robe. He was handsome and had a special temperament. He was like a sharp sword that was unparalleled. Clearly, he was the most talented genius of the Grim Reaper, Li Heng. Warriors in the hall stood up and looked at him. Li Heng ignored the warriors that were bowing to him. He looked at Yu Yang and then Lu Li. He must have received the news that the Grim Reaper was filled with scouts from different families. Lu Li's every move could be monitored. Even though Lu Li had disguised himself, he didn't when he left the Yu family. He was found out by the scouts of the Li family. Seeing Li Heng looking at him with provocation, Lu Li sighed to himself. It was not easy for him to come out and have a drink, but there were flies buzzing around him. It was so annoying. Lu Li lowered his head and ignored Li Heng's stare. There were dozens of warriors in the hall. Those that could come here were powerful or had some background. The price here was not cheap. The warriors looked at Li Heng and then at Lu Li, wondering what Li Heng wanted to do. The young master sitting next to Yu Yang looked unfamiliar. Li Heng walked over in strides and stood in front of Yu Yang and Lu Li's table. He picked up a goblet, took a sip, and said, "Brother Yang, why don't you take me with you? I don't know your new friend. Why don't you introduce him to me?" Yu Yang looked at Lu Li. Seeing that Lu Li kept his head down and didn't say anything, Yu Yang said with a smile, "Young Master Heng, my friend is a bit cold, so I won't introduce him. You, young Master Heng, can't you just say that you want to drink? Just drink. It's on me." Cold? Li Heng humphed and said, "Is this guy who hides his head but shows his tail a spy? I think it's better to screen him." As soon as Li Heng finished his words, the hall quieted down. Even the drumming stopped. Clearly, Li Heng was here looking for trouble. The key point was that the person he was looking for was also a big shot, the #1 young master of the Yu family. If the two of them were to fight, then it would be too much a show. The other warriors wouldn't dare to stay and watch for fear of being implicated. Yu Yang's expressions turned cold. Not only was Li Heng not giving Lu Li face, but he was also being humiliated in public. The guest he brought here was a spy. That meant there was something wrong with him as well. Yu Yang was about to stand up when Lu Li grabbed him. Lu Li's hand glowed, and a token appeared in his hand. He threw it on the table and said, "Can this prove that I am not a spy?" Swish, swish, swish. Many people looked over. When they saw the token, their expressions changed. A group of warriors immediately got down on one knee and shouted, "Greetings, Inspector Lu." The word inspector was engraved on the token. There is only one inspector of the God of Death, and that was Lu Li. The authority and status of an inspector in the God of Death was comparable to that of a law enforcement patriarch. Even the trump card of the God of Death would have to kneel and salute Lu Li. "Oh." Li Heng raised his eyebrows and said, "So, it is Inspector Lu. Please forgive me. You didn't show your real face, so I didn't recognize you. I thought you were a spy. Please forgive me." "Not at all, not at all." Lu Li's face glowed, and he changed back to his original appearance. He raised the token, looked at Li Heng coldly, and said, "Don't you know how to kneel and salute, Inspector? Have you forgotten the rules of the God of Death?" End of this chapter. Chapter 33:06. According to the rules of the Grim Reaper, a low-level Grim Reaper would have to kneel down on one knee when they saw a high-level Grim Reaper. High-level Grim Reapers were all fought with real swords and spears, which represented powerful combat power. The path of martial arts had always been about the strong being respected. Low-level martial artists had to kneel when they saw high-level martial artists. This was respect for the path of martial arts. Above the death god Ace was the law enforcement elder. To be able to become a law enforcement elder, one's combat strength was extremely terrifying. The law enforcement elder was originally a well-known figure among the death god Ace, and he had also killed his way out a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Therefore, the Grim Reaper had set the rule that when they saw the elder of law enforcement, they had to kneel on one knee and salute. The patrol inspector and the elder of law enforcement were of the same rank, so they had to kneel and salute when they saw him. Of course, the rules were fixed. As long as Luli didn't look into it, the other warriors could choose to kneel or not. Take Yu Yang, for example. Luli often met him. Did Yu Yang have to kneel down and salute Luli every time? Originally, there was an unspoken rule in the city. After these big shots, there were also outstanding trump cards, the Grim Reapers, who didn't need to kneel and salute when they saw the Deacon Elder. At most, they could just bow and salute. But now that Lu Li was investigating, according to the rules of death, Li Heng had to salute Lu Li and get down on one knee. As soon as Lu Li finished his words, the atmosphere became even more tense. The rest of the young masters and martial artists wanted to fly out. This show wasn't going to be good. If they continued to watch, something bad might happen. Who was Li Heng? That was the treasure of the biggest family, a monster that could sweep away the younger generation. Mo Qianqian was a little devil, but this was definitely a little devil. In the younger generation of the Grim Reaper, no one dared to provoke him. The elders all gave in to him and accommodated him. He was the little tyrant of the Grim Reaper. Luli asked him to kneel. It was true that Luli was an inspector, but Luli was an outsider who had just become an inspector not long ago. His foundation in the Grim Reaper was very shallow. Once a commotion broke out, it didn't matter if it didn't cause a big commotion, but if it did, it was likely that all the big shots would stand on Li Heng's side. At that time, the situation might get out of hand. Instead of being angry, Li Heng smiled. He stared at Lu Li for the time for 10 breaths before he asked, "Are you sure? My patrol inspector, Lu, are you sure you want me to kneel before you?" Lu Li nodded expressionlessly. This is the rule of the Grim Reaper. You grew up in the Grim Reaper. Don't you know this? There's this one. Li Heng nodded with a smile and said, "But this rule doesn't work on me, because besides the 9 great leaders, I haven't knelt to anyone. Do you think you're more qualified than Emperor Wu and Emperor Su?" "Cut the crap," Lu Li said emotionlessly. "Kneel or not. If you don't kneel, I'll inform the disciplinary hall." "Ha ha!" Li Heng laughed loudly, and his aura rose steadily. He was like a giant beast that had been woken up from a deep slumber. He roared, "Go call them, go inform the disciplinary hall, and see if they dare to arrest me. You want me to kneel? Sure, but you have to fight me in the duel arena. If you can beat me, then I will kneel and kowtow to you 10 times. If you lose, then you have to kowtow to me 10 times. How about that? Do you dare, Patrol Inspector Lu?" Li Heng had always wanted to fight with Lu Li. He had spread the news before, but Lu Li didn't accept it. He just ignored it. Now that Li Heng issued a challenge to Li Heng, the news would spread across the entire Grim Reaper. If Lu Li didn't accept the challenge, then his reputation would be affected and his prestige would be damaged. Everyone looked at Lu Li, wanting to see how he would deal with it. Lu Li remained expressionless. He waved his hand indifferently and said, "Sun Yu, send a signal. Ask the leader of the disciplinary hall to come here." Sun Yu was hesitating, but Lu Li was determined. He made up his mind, took out a signal detonator, and threw it out of the window. The signal detonator exploded in midair, alarming the entire city. Many people scanned over with psychic power. Li Heng looked awful. Did Lu Li really call it the Hall of Punishments? Many warriors in the city were looking over with psychic power. If he were taken away by the disciplinary hall, then he would lose face. Lu Li's cold voice came. "Li Heng, you are powerful, but you are not qualified to be my opponent. Come and challenge me when you're infinitely close to the perfect realm, or when you could defeat a big race on your own." Whoosh! From outside came some noises. 5 Saint Emperors flew in quickly and went into the tower. They had already checked the situation here with psychic power. They looked bitter. They couldn't afford to offend either side. A team leader of the Hall of Punishments looked at Lu Li. He bowed and asked, "Patrol Inspector, what can I do for you?" Lu Li pointed to Li Heng and said, Li Heng has violated the punishment of the Grim Reaper. He didn't kneel to me and even provoked me. Take him back and teach him a lesson. The leader looked even more bitter. He smiled apologetically at Lu Li and said, Patrol Lu, this is not a big deal. Do you have to make a big deal out of it? Emperor Li, nothing can be accomplished without rules. Lu Li didn't reply. He said directly, If anyone can offend me, then what is the point of the rules of the Grim Reaper? The Grim Reaper is a big place. What will happen if there are no rules? What is the point of the disciplinary hall? Carry out my orders. Yes. The leader of the disciplinary hall didn't say more. He smiled bitterly at Li Heng and said, Li Heng, please come with us. Ha. Li Heng looked at Lu Li with a cold smile, shook his head and said, Patrol Lu, you are disappointing. With that said, Li Heng turned around and walked out. He looked back at the leader and said, Let's go. What are you waiting for? Let's go to the disciplinary hall. Do whatever you want and I will accept it. Goodbye. The leader of the disciplinary hall cupped his fists to Lu Li and went after Li Heng with several other Saint Emperors. It didn't look like they were escorting Li Heng back. It was more like they were escorting him back. As soon as Li Heng left, the other young masters and warriors in the pavilion scrambled to leave, as if they were afraid that they would be sent to the disciplinary hall by Lu Li if they stayed any longer. In just a few moments, all of them had left, and not a single one was left. Lu Li, Sun Yu lightly sighed and said, I'm afraid this matter will immediately spread throughout the Grim Reaper. If you do this, your prestige will definitely suffer a great blow. However, it will also be troublesome for you to fight him. It doesn't matter. Lu Li shrugged and said, What do I need prestige for? Also, I didn't get my fame by fighting with young masters. Also, I don't manage the Grim Reaper, so I don't care what the Grim Reaper thinks of me. That's true. Yu Yang nodded. They got up and walked to Yu Yang's manor. After they sat in the castle for a while, a warrior in a black robe came in and handed them a letter. Lu Li was about to leave when Yu Yang waved his hand and said, No need. What is our relationship? Also, you're the patrol. You have the right to see the intelligence of the Grim Reaper. Yu Yang took a look and was surprised. He murmured, Several powerful warriors came from the Immortal region, and they brought back some news. The Immortal region is in chaos right now. Chapter 3307. Chaos in the Immortal region. Lu Li's interest was piqued. The avian sovereign once said that the Immortal region was 1,000 times more dangerous than the chaotic star field. If it was so chaotic here, how chaotic would the Immortal region be? Was it really the Immortal region and not hell? Seeing that Lu Li was interested, Yu Yang handed over the letter in his hand and explained, It says that the son of the king of the eastern region of the Immortal region had a conflict with the son of the king of the northern region. Both sides have mobilized a large number of troops to fight. It is said that the king of the eastern region is an immortal beast. His son has just returned and is named Lu Xiaobai, the same surname as you. Lu Xiaobai? Lu Li's soul trembled as if he had heard a clap of thunder. Suddenly, he had a strange idea. He took the letter and read it carefully. After reading it several times, he shook his head and said, Impossible. It should not be possible. What is possible? Yu Yang asked curiously. Lu Li was still shaking his head and murmuring. After a while, he suddenly looked up and said, Yu Yang, can you help me find out more about this Lu Xiaobai? The more detail, the better. It would be best if you have a portrait of him. What do you want this information for? Yu Yang was still confused. He asked, Do you know this Lu Xiaobai? Don't ask him so many questions. Lu Li said seriously, Help me find out. Do everything you can to find out more about Lu Xiaobai. Okay. Yu Yang looked at the Saint King, who nodded and left. Lu Li suddenly stood up and paced back and forth in the room. His expression kept changing, and he kept murmuring, It is not possible, right? This is simply unimaginable. Yu Yang stood up and asked, Lu Li, what is going on? When I was in the mortal world, I had a mystical pet. Lu Li turned around and explained, It followed me as soon as it was born. Its physical body is very strong, and it is very intelligent. It has been with me for many years. Then it suddenly disappeared. I have been looking for it for many, many years, but to no avail. I named it Xiaobai. Yu Yang was startled. Then he forced a smile and said, Luli, I think you are overthinking this. That is the Eastern Region monarch of the Immortal Region, one of the most powerful rulers in the Immortal Region. It is also an immortal beast with a true immortal body, and its battle prowess can sweep away all the peak experts in the 8 major galaxies. And you said that your spirit beast was found in the mortal world? How powerful was he before he disappeared? An immortal beast would probably be able to instantly kill a martial emperor the moment it was born, right? If it appears in the mortal world, just the might of an immortal beast is enough to cause your world to collapse. Immortal beasts are that powerful. Luli was speechless. His expressions changed several times before he asked, Then why is his surname Lu and his name is Little White? This can't be explained at all. Is that immortal beast also surnamed Lu? Immortal beasts don't seem to have a surname. Yang Yu thought for a moment and said, I forgot its name, Ho or something. Immortal beasts don't have surnames, only names. Luli, maybe it was just a coincidence? How can an immortal beast wander to the mortal world? Even if it did, there would be signs soon. Does your spirit beast have any abnormal abilities? It is abnormal in the mortal world, but compared to a spirit beast at the 3rd realm, it is nothing. Luli answered honestly. Then he added, But it is very smart. It can understand me at a young age. It is more intelligent than a human being. Boss, Yang Yu sighed helplessly and said, Let alone the chaotic star regions, you could go to any small universe and find some low-level spirit beasts. There are many spirit beasts that are more intelligent than us. Some of them are even more intelligent than us. This doesn't mean anything. Is it really just a coincidence? Lu Li's eyes became misty. Logically speaking, it was almost impossible for Little White to be an immortal beast. If Little White was an immortal beast, then its physical body must be horrifying. But Little White was injured many times in the mortal world and almost died on several occasions. Yang Yu said that immortal beasts were born with abilities comparable to martial emperors. Comparatively speaking, Little White's abilities were weak. Even a divine god of one tribulation could kill it, let alone a martial emperor. But why was that immortal beast called Little White Lu? Luli couldn't understand it. This was too strange. Never mind. Luli shook his head and said, Go and find some information for me. Go and ask those powerful warriors that came from the immortal region. I am willing to spend as many celestial stones as you want. I want all the information about Little White. It would be best if I can get a portrait of it. Okay, I will try my best. Yang nodded. He didn't believe that Luli was dreaming at all. It was ridiculous, even more ridiculous than the Arabian Nights. Luli told Yang Yu to keep a secret. Then he left in a hurry and went to Emperor Su. He asked the intelligence department of the God of Death to find out everything about the immortal beast. Emperor Su was confused, but he had to show some respect to Luli. He asked the steward of the intelligence department to investigate. Luli went back to the Lu mansion and told this to Jiang Qiling by Qiu Xue and Qixir. Everyone was surprised, but the girls didn't believe it. They thought it was just a coincidence. They had heard some rumors about the immortal region. This was too ridiculous. For the rest of the time, Luli waited anxiously. He went to Yang Yu's place every day. He was too embarrassed to go to the Hall of Patriarchs. Yang Yu was already annoying him. If it were someone else, he would have gone. Yang Yu didn't understand how important Little White was to Lu Li when he was little. It was safe to say that Lu Ling was the most important to Lu Li. Little White was not his pet. In his mind, Little White was his little brother. It grew up with him, fought with him, and saved his life many times. Luli could sacrifice his life for Little White. Seeing that Luli was in such a hurry, Yang Yu had no choice but to send someone with a large number of celestial stones to gather information. He also allowed the warriors to ask for favors from the Yu family. After all, those that could enter the immortal region were at least Saint Emperors. It was not easy to buy information from powerful warriors of this level. Half a month, 1 month, 2.5 months. Finally, a piece of information was delivered. It was from a Saint Emperor who came from the immortal region. He had never met Lu Xiaobai, but he had heard some stories about him. He told the information to the Yu family. Lu Xiaobai, the proud son of the king of the eastern region, the immortal beast. He was born less than 2,000 years ago. He is very powerful, almost as powerful as a warrior at the consummate realm. He is rebellious and addicted to killing. He has been stirring up wars for thousands of years and has defeated the sons of 5 kings. He is now fighting against the 3rd son of the king of the northern region. He lives in the Mystic Armor City all year round. Wait, the Mystic Armor City. When Luli read this, his body trembled violently. His eyes became blurry, and he almost burst into tears. At this moment, he was 60% sure that the son of the immortal beast was very likely to be Whitey. His surname was Lu, his name was Little White, and he lived in the Mystic Armor City? If it was just a name, it could be a coincidence. But he lived in the Mystic Armor City. Lu Li's family was the Mystic Armor family. The place where the Lu family lived was called the Mystic Armor City. I want to go to the Immortal Region. I want to go to the Immortal Region. Chapter 3308. The Immortal Realms was a very mystical place. It was a place that could cause people to be bewitched. Once one entered this place and survived, it was possible that one could create one miracle after another. Many experts from the 8 major star fields had entered. Although most of them died inside or never came out, they were still able to enter. But as long as they could stay there for a few hundred years and come out, they would gain something in the end. Almost all the warriors in the chaotic star fields had entered the Immortal Region. Many of them had broken through there. Therefore, entering the Immortal Region was the dream of countless warriors. They fought for the key to the Immortal Region. Back then, the Demon Abyss had started 2 wars to snatch the key to the Immortal Region hidden in the Middle King realm. After losing the first war, they spent hundreds of thousands of years to open up the passage to the Middle King realm. The 2 wars had killed almost all of the warriors in the Middle King realm. The key to the Immortal Region was a magical thing. It was not fixed, but appeared randomly. A few keys would appear every 1,000 years. They were scattered all over the world. No one knew where they would appear. To enter the Immortal Region, one had to find the key. One key could allow 10 warriors to enter. Luli didn't want to enter the Immortal Region at all. After getting the key, he didn't even ask Yang about the Immortal Region. A while ago, the Avian Sovereign told him that if he wanted to reach the Immortal Region, he could enter. But Luli didn't even think about it back then. He didn't even consider it. Now, Luli was very eager to enter the Immortal Domain. He would not stay in the Immortal Domain for too long. He just wanted to go in and take a look. He wanted to find Lu Xiaobai and see if it was his missing Xiaobai. He made up his mind. He had to go to the Immortal Region. He looked at Yu Yang and said, "Help me find out about the key. See who has the key. Take me with you. It doesn't matter how much I have to pay." Luli, calm down, Yu Yang advised. The Immortal Region is too dangerous. I suggest you cultivate for a few hundred or 1,000 years. We could talk about the key. I will arrange it for you later. Are you sure that Lu Xiaobai is the spirit pet you are looking for? Yu Yang still didn't believe it. He was the son of an immortal beast. How could he fall to the mortal world and become Lu Li's spirit pet? This was simply inconceivable. No, Lu Li nodded with certainty. My cultivation has reached a bottleneck. Even if I cultivate for another 1,000 years, I won't be able to make much progress. I have to go to the Immortal Region. Yu Yang, help me. All right. Yu Yang pursed his lips and pondered. He paced back and forth in the room and pondered for the time it took for an incense stick to burn before saying, "Actually, we, the Grim Reaper, have the key to enter the Immortal Domain." Previously, the higher-ups were also preparing to organize a group of young elites to go in and gain experience. Since you're so eager to go in, then I'll go talk to the Elder Ancestor and see if we can go in earlier. All right. Luli was cheered up. He left the Sun Feather Castle and went back to the Lu Mansion. He gathered a group of important higher-ups of the Lu Alliance and talked about this matter. After Lu Li finished his words, the hall fell into silence. The Lu Alliance was developing well. It didn't matter whether Lu Li was here or not. As long as Lu Li was alive, the Lu Alliance could continue to grow. The problem was, The immortal region was so dangerous. Nobody could tell if Luli would die in there. That was a place where even powerful warriors close to the completion of the immortal domain could die easily. Luli's wives and concubines didn't say anything. They knew how important Little White was to Luli, even though Ling Long and Chi Ding Dong had never seen Little White. But they had heard of Luli's story. They knew that Little White was more like a younger brother to Luli than a pet. Luli. After a while, Lu Ling said, "Since you have made up your mind, I will support you. Don't worry, I will take care of things at home. You just have to remember that you are not alone now. If you die, we will not be able to live on. So, no matter what happens, you must keep yourself alive first. Do you understand?" Yes. Luli nodded. Lu Ling had said everything. The others didn't know what to say. They wouldn't try to persuade Lu Li when he had made up his mind, because it would be useless. After a few days, Sovereign Su sent over some information. It was similar to the one Yu Yang sent, but more detailed. Luli noticed that the City of Mystic Armor was not originally called the City of Mystic Armor. It was Lu Xiaobai who changed the name. This was more or less true. Luli was quite sure that Lu Xiaobai was Little White. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many coincidences. But Luli didn't understand how Little White could go to the immortal region. If he was the son of a beast of a mortal realm, why was he so weak in a mortal world? Luli could only find the answers to these questions when he found this Lu Xiaobai. Luli was quite confident about this trip. He had the swift skill, the movement skill, and the stealth skill. More importantly, he had a strange realm of Dharma. As long as he entered the realm of Dharma, even a warrior at the completion of the realm of Dharma might not be able to find him and kill him. Luli waited anxiously. After more than a month, Luli finally got the news that Sovereign of Wings had sent someone to summon him. When Luli entered a hall, he was surprised to see many familiar warriors. Li Heng, Mo Qianqian, Yu Yang, Wan Shi, Lady Li. There were 9 warriors standing in the hall. They were the most powerful young masters and young ladies in the God of Death. All of them were Saint Emperors, and the weakest of them was at the middle stage of the Saint Emperor realm. They couldn't be weak. Of course, none of them were close to the completion of the realm of death. By all accounts, Lu Li and Li Heng should be the most powerful. When Lu Li arrived, Sovereign of Wings said, "Lu Li, according to the plan, we were going to organize a team to go to the immortal region in a couple of years. Since you want to go now, let's go now." Sovereign of Wings looked to the other warriors and said, "Think about it carefully. This time, we will go to the immortal region from the south, which is relatively safer. But there's a 50% chance that you will die. The immortal region is a strange place, a place that can create miracles. But it is also a place that is more horrible than hell. If you go in, half of you will die." Li Heng shrugged and said, "It doesn't matter. I will make it out. The warriors in the Chaotic Star region are too cowardly. Maybe the warriors in the immortal region will dare to fight with me." Li Heng was obviously mocking Lu Li, but Lu Li turned a deaf ear. Mo Qianqian smiled and said, "The ancestors of the God of Death have fought in the immortal region. As the descendants of the God of Death, how can we not go to the place where our ancestors fought?" Wan Shi, Yu Yang, and the others nodded. Since they were standing here, it meant that they were willing to go to the immortal region. Not only were they willing, but they had been looking forward to going to the immortal region for a long time. Today, their wish was finally going to come true. Chapter 3309. The date of departure was set for 3 months later. Every warrior received a set of information about the general situation of the immortal realm, as well as the situation in the south. Luli brought it back and flipped through it. There was a lot of information, and after reading it for more than 6 hours, he had a general understanding of the immortal realm. First of all, the immortal realm was huge. The sacred region was larger than any other. Luli didn't know how it compared to the realms above the 4th heaven, but at least it was much larger than the realms he had seen before. It was 1,000,000 times larger than the largest realm in the Chaotic Star sector. In other words, the immortal realm was almost half the size of the entire Chaotic Star field. If Luli flew at full speed from the south to the north without any obstacles, It would take him a year and a half. Of course, this was flying in a straight line without any obstacles. Under normal circumstances, it was almost impossible for Lu Li to cross the entire immortal realm, because he would be killed on the way. There were three terrifying things about the immortal realm. The first was that there would be lightning. This lightning came out of nowhere, without warning, and without any pattern. Maybe you were walking in the wilderness and the sky was clear, but a sudden lightning strike could turn you into slag. Of course, after so many years, the immortal realm had developed some methods to deal with lightning. Many seniors of the Grim Reaper had entered, so they naturally knew these methods to prevent Lu Li and the others from being struck to death by lightning. The second was the immortal beasts. There were two types of immortal beasts in the immortal realm. One was highly intelligent, like the king of the eastern region. The other type had no intelligence at all and were even very bloodthirsty. Their combat strength was terrifying. The strongest immortal beasts could kill a powerhouse at the absolute realm. The immortal beasts in the immortal realm didn't stay in a specific territory. They liked to wander around and hunt. The third danger was the nighttime of the immortal domain. In the nighttime of the immortal domain, there would be some strange things that existed. These things wouldn't kill martial artists, but they would cause them to go crazy. Sometimes, a group of martial artists might even kill each other. The immortal realm called this strange phenomenon the Nightmare Night. There was another saying that many immortal beasts became bloodthirsty and had no intelligence at all because of the Nightmare Night. The Nightmare Night turned these immortal beasts into killing machines, destroying their intelligence. In fact, there was another kind of danger in the immortal realm, and that was the strong. There were many strong people there, both from the local races and from the outside. When the world above the fourth heaven collapsed, countless strong people swarmed into the immortal realm, making it full of danger. Of course, the reason why the immortal realm was called the immortal realm was because there were indeed many mystical things inside. For example, the density of the heaven and earth spiritual chi inside was comparable to that of the eye of destruction. The number of heaven and earth spiritual medicines inside was frightening. There were also countless mystical and mysterious treasure lands, ruins, tombs, and so on. Countless experts from the 8 major star fields had entered. As long as they could survive, they would benefit greatly from it and improve rapidly. The immortal realms was a mystical place, a place where miracles could be created. It was a place where many experts yearned to go, but it was also the graveyard of experts. There was a chaos. There were 9 great realm kings and countless chiefs there. The chiefs under each realm were killing each other. The war there seemed to have never stopped. No one knew when they would suddenly be killed. There were not many safe places there. Even the cities were not safe. Relatively speaking, the southern region was safer. The king of the southern region was gentle and didn't like killing. If he killed innocent people, he would be hunted down. Therefore, the southern region was safer. There were 4 entrances to the immortal realm: east, west, south, and north. The strong people liked to enter from the other 3 directions, and the weak people naturally liked to enter from the southern region. Lu Li and the others were the top strong people of the young generation, but they were not strong enough in the immortal realm. They might meet a strong person who was infinitely close to the perfected martial arts realm. If they looked at him, he might cut them into pieces. The southern region. Lu Li was a little sad. He wanted to go to the eastern region to find Lu Xiaobai. If he entered from the southern region, he would have to go through the southern region and the eastern region. He would have to go through almost half of the immortal realm, which would be even more dangerous. But this time, the 10 of them moved together. The avian sovereign said to enter from the southern region, and that couldn't be changed. Lu Li could only follow the group and enter from the southern region. After that, he would act alone. This map is not very complete and detailed. Lu Li was holding a map in his hand. This map didn't even have the mark of the Mystic Armor City. Many places on the map were empty. This meant that the strong people of the Grim Reaper hadn't been to many places. They only drew a partial map based on their memory. Of course, even if they had a complete map, it wouldn't make much sense. The map was changing all the time, and so were the names of the cities. It was said that there were 108,000 big cities and millions of small cities in the immortal realm. Every day, many cities could change their owners. Many paradises were occupied by the immortal realm during the day. At night, they might be occupied by someone else. Luli looked through the information and the map over and over again. He knew in his heart that it was meaningless to look at these things. Nobody knew what he would encounter in the immortal realm, but he still wanted to learn as much as he could because he wanted to survive. He didn't want to die in the immortal realm. His wives needed him, the Lu family needed him, and the Lu Alliance needed him. During these 3 months, Luli didn't go out at all. He stayed with his family all day. His wives and concubines didn't go out or cultivate. They stayed with him all day. It might be sad to marry a man like this, but they didn't like a man who wasn't like this. Maybe they couldn't have their cake and eat it too. Falling in love with a man who didn't come home, his wives and concubines made love with Luli every night. They knew they couldn't get pregnant, but they wanted to try. What if Luli couldn't have children because of his bloodline skill, like those special races? In that case, there would be a chance. If the quality was not good, then they would make up for it with quantity. Yu Yang, Mo Chantian, and the others were preparing secretly. They brought enough relics and items to protect themselves. Luli, on the other hand, had nothing. For Luli, if he couldn't protect himself with his current forces, then there was no point in thinking of other ways. 3 months passed quickly. Before Luli left, he went to see Emperor Yin and asked him to take care of Lu Alliance. Emperor Yin told Luli not to worry. Even if he died in the immortal realm, the god of death would take care of him for some years, considering his previous contributions. At the very least, Lu Alliance's safety would be guaranteed. 3 months later, the 10 powerful warriors gathered together. They took the teleportation formation to the westernmost universe of the Chaotic Star region. From there, they would leave the Chaotic Star region. After half a year on a battleship, they would arrive at the immortal realm. Let's go. Good luck. In a castle, King of Wings came in person to see Luli off. King of Wings thought about it and said, "If you have any disagreements in the immortal realm, you must listen to Luli. This is an order." Li Heng's expression changed slightly, and Miss Li's expression also turned ugly, but they didn't say anything. Who dared to disobey King of Wings' order? That being said, things would be complicated in the immortal realm. Maybe Luli would die as soon as he went in. End of this chapter. Chapter 33:10. In the void in the far west of the Chaotic Star region, a battleship was flying across the sky. The speed of the battleship was as fast as a warrior of the later stage of Saint King realm. The battleship could accelerate 3 more times, and then it would break down. But it didn't matter. Mo Chantian had more than a dozen of such battleships. This battleship was bigger than the previous one. It was divided into 3 levels. Luli and Yang Yu lived on the lowest level. It wasn't assigned to them. Luli chose it himself. He and Yu Yang were currently sitting at a small table on the lowest deck of the ship, sipping their tea. On the highest level of the battleship, there was also a big table. 5 young masters and young ladies were sitting around it. Li Heng, Mo Chantian, Lady Li, and 2 other young masters were all sitting there. From time to time, there would be some laughter mixed with Mo Chantian's charming laughter and Lady Li's bell-like voice. She is doing this on purpose. She's trying to provoke you. Yang Yu looked up and said with a smile, "Luli, you have upset her." "I know." Luli lowered his head and sipped his tea. He said calmly, "I am focusing on Buddhism. There are some things that I don't care about. I am past the age of being trapped by love. I don't have the impulse and desire that young men have when they see beautiful women. Tell me about yourself." Luli waved his hand to stop Yang Yu from talking about this topic. He said with a smile, "Young Master Yu, I have never heard of any rumors about you. Could it be that you have a problem with your sexual orientation? If that is the case, I must be careful. Your joke is not funny at all." Yang Yu's expression became gloomy. He said calmly, "Sometimes it is not a good thing to be born into a wealthy family. I had a fiancée, but I fell in love with a young lady from a small clan. Then my lover died, all of a sudden. From that day on, I didn't dare to love a woman anymore. What a sad story. Luli pursed his lips, put down the teacup, and asked Yang Yu, "Then, did you avenge this girl?" Yu Yang gazed into the distant void and said, "After I finished investigating, I personally went to my fiancé's clan and tore up the marriage contract in front of everyone. Then, this clan and our Yu family became enemies. Later, the clan encountered a powerful enemy. We didn't help, and the clan was almost wiped out. My fiancé died as well." "Karma." Luli nodded and said, "Your fiancé must have regretted it before she died. If she hadn't done something wrong back then, your two families wouldn't have become enemies, and her race wouldn't have been wiped out." "Maybe." Yang Yu sighed and shook his head. "Luli, what do you want?" "What do you want?" "Luli's plans?" Luli transmitted his voice. "After going to the immortal realm, I may part ways with you. You can train in the southern region. I will go to the eastern region to find Lu Xiaobai. I'll go with you." Yu Yang transmitted his voice with a resolute look in his eyes. "Even though your battle prowess is much stronger than mine, one more person means one more force. Plus, not all of the Yu family's disciples are useless. They can still lend a hand in crucial moments. I have no doubt about your abilities and the strength of the Harpies." Luli patted Yu Yang's shoulder and said, "All right, let's talk about it later. Let's enter the immortal region first." Rustle, rustle, rustle. Right at that moment, some footsteps came from the deck. Luli and Yang Yu both looked back and saw a beautiful figure. It was not Mo Qianqian or Miss Li, but Luan Shi, one of the 3 golden flowers of the Grim Reaper. Luli was a bit surprised. This young lady didn't have much contact with him, and she was very proud. After she was defeated by Lu Li, they didn't have any contact. He didn't expect that she would come to him on her own. Now, the 10 young geniuses were divided into 3 groups: Li Heng and the others, Lu Li and Yu Yang, and Luan Shi and the others. The battleship was split into 3 floors, with each of the 3 factions living on one floor. Yu Yang stood up, but Luli didn't because he was the inspector. Luan Shi walked over and bowed to Luli with respect. Then she said with respect, "Lord Inspector, can you buy me a cup of tea?" Luli smiled and said, "Of course." Luan Shi's temperament was like that of an elegant princess. She sat with dignity, and Yu Yang poured tea for her. The way she drank the tea was elegant as well. There was a charming smile on her face, but she didn't say anything. Luli didn't say anything either. Yu Yang sat for a while and asked, "Lady Luan Shi, what can I do for you?" "I dare not." Luan Shi bowed, looked at Luli, and said, "I have offended you before. This time, Luan Shi is here to ask for your forgiveness. Also, please take care of Luan Shi during the rest of the journey." Luli smiled lightly and said, "I don't remember what happened before. We are comrades, and we all came from the Grim Reaper. Of course, we should help each other. If I can help in the immortal region, I will not stand by and do nothing." "Thank you, Inspector." Luan Shi stood up and bowed. Then she looked at Luli affectionately and said, "Luan Shi has always heard about the deeds of Inspector Liu. Luan Shi admires Inspector Liu very much. I hope we can be friends in the future." "Of course." Luli shrugged and said, "I am honored to be friends with Lady Luan Shi." Luan Shi walked away gracefully with a sweet smile. Yu Yang put on a smile that only men could understand. He leaned over and said in a low voice, "Inspector Liu, your charm is really enviable. The 3 golden flowers have an ambiguous relationship with you. Young Masterly must be hopping mad. Can't you think more healthily?" Luli rolled his eyes and said, "It is a simple relationship, but when you talk about it, it becomes something else." "Ha ha ha." Yu Yang laughed and looked up. Even though he couldn't see what was going on the 3rd deck, Yu Yang felt it must be interesting. Even though their line of sight was blocked, everyone here was a powerful warrior. They didn't even need to use their psychic power to sense it. There was no more laughter. Li Heng's face darkened. Even though Mo Qianqian didn't pull a long face, she didn't smile either. Instead, she looked into the distance with melancholy. Lady Eli's eyes were filled with hatred. Lady Li had been cultivating very hard over the years. It could even be said that she was torturing herself. Her abilities were growing rapidly, but she felt she was getting further and further away from Lu Li. Before, Lu Li could kill her in an instant. Now that her abilities had improved by leaps and bounds, she felt Lu Li could still kill her in an instant. The immortal region. Lady Li clenched her fists tightly. Her face was filled with determination. She murmured in a voice that only she could hear, "This time, I must seize the opportunity to go to the immortal region. I must become stronger. I must become a powerful warrior that is infinitely close to the completion of the immortal region. Then, I will trample Lu Li under my feet. I will bring Lu Li back to the infinite region and hang him on the flag of the barren castle." End of chapter. Chapter 33:11. The battleship flew out of the chaotic star region and kept moving forward. In order to avoid Luan Shi or Lady Mo Chanqian's pestering, Lu Li went into his cabin to cultivate. While he was cultivating his body, he was strengthening his soul. Also, he was thinking about soul skills, how to improve the power of formation skills, and the power of the law of sound. The spirit array technique was very strong, and with the help of the purple divine liquid, he could seal experts who were infinitely close to the great perfection realm. Although he might only be able to seal them for a short moment, it was enough for him to tear the enemy apart. It was difficult to improve his body further. He had many top-level elixirs, but it didn't mean much. It was too difficult. Time flew by in closed-door cultivation. Lu Li didn't come out. Li Heng didn't have a chance, even though he wanted to make trouble. Mo Chanqian wanted to talk to Lu Li as well. But Lu Li had activated the runes in his cabin, so she couldn't go in. Yu Yang was in closed-door cultivation as well. He didn't want to get into trouble. Li Heng and the others didn't have a worthy opponent, so they had to cultivate and wait for the arrival of the immortal region. Nothing happened on the way. Apart from the darkness and the space turbulence, nothing happened. It was so quiet that it was frightening. Half a year passed by quickly. Mo Chanqian activated the runes in the cabins. Lu Li and the others came out. They looked at a huge surface in the distance at once. Looking from here, Lu Li felt he was looking at the firmament. He was like an ant facing an ocean. The space in front of him was ancient and heavy, suffocating him. Outside the surface, there was a purple and golden haze. In the haze, some palaces could be vaguely seen. Looking at it from afar, Lu Li was shocked. Insignificant. At this moment, the only feeling Lu Li had was insignificance. He felt he had become a child without the strength to truss up a chicken. Facing the vast power, Lu Li had the urge to kneel on the ground and worship. Yu Yang and the others were amazed as well. They were dazzled. They all stared at the huge surface and exclaimed. They were knowledgeable, but this was the first time they had been to the immortal region. Whoosh! Mo Chanqian steered the battleship closer to the immortal region. All the powerful warriors used psychic power to check around, trying to find the entrance. This immortal realm was too big. It would probably take a long time to find the entrance, right? After spending an entire day, the warship neared the celestial domain and flew along the celestial domain. Lu Li used psychic power to check around as well to see if there was a weak spot in space that he could enter. No, Lu Li couldn't find any entrances along the way. He had been flying for 3 days and 3 nights without finding a way in. He wasn't surprised. If one could casually enter, then the immortal domain key would be meaningless. Just like that, the battleship flew close to the interface for more than half a month, but it still hadn't reached the entrance. However, they found a landmark on the map, found a few pieces of void debris, and found a wasteland. Not far, Mo Chanqian said, in 10 days at most, we will be able to find the entrance. Everyone had a map in their hands, and they had all matched their numbers. All the powerhouses, including Lu Li, were very excited. They were about to enter the immortal region, the center of the world that all warriors dreamed of entering, the greatest treasure trove in the entire world. Sure enough, after 9 days, they saw a shining golden door. Rather than a door, It was more like a ball of air emitting golden light. This ball of air slowly rotated like a nebula. According to the information, this was one of the entrances to the immortal domain. That's right, this is the entrance to the southern region. Mo Qianqian took the map and compared it with the surroundings and said with certainty. Li Heng flew up, and his handsome and masculine face revealed a smile that could enchant women. He said, "Then what are we waiting for? The wheel of history has already started, and the road to conquering the immortal domain has already begun. Heroes and war goddesses, let us embark on our journey and start our road to becoming kings." Lu Li and Yu Yang looked at each other, and Lu Li touched his nose. He always felt that Li Heng was a bit of a chinibyu. Just because he was ranked first among the younger generation of the Grim Reaper, he thought he was the best in the world. Conquering the immortal domain? Don't go in and be hacked to death. Mo Qianqian put away the warship, and everyone gathered together and flew towards the entrance. At the entrance, Li Heng suddenly stopped, looked at Lu Li, and said seriously, "Patrol Envoy Lu, although we had some misunderstandings before, I hope that after we enter the immortal domain, we can put aside our grudges. I don't want to be stabbed in the back. The immortal domain is very dangerous, and we can settle our grudges after we come out. How about it?" Kiki. Lu Li laughed. Seeing that all the martial artists were looking at him, he shrugged his shoulders and said, "Don't forget my identity. I am the patrol envoy, and I have the responsibility and obligation to protect you. Of course, the condition is that you don't create trouble for me." "That's good." Li Heng put on a fake smile, and the ring on his hand lit up. Subsequently, a huge stone box appeared. He opened the stone box and took out a glowing jade stone. That jade stone was covered with complicated divine patterns, and it looked like a cardinal treasure. Everyone held their breaths as they stared at the golden ball of air, waiting for the entrance to the immortal domain to open. The jade stone was thrown into the air whirlpool, and slowly, the golden air whirlpool started to react. It slowly wriggled, and the light became brighter and brighter. It was so bright that everyone couldn't open their eyes. Everyone closed their eyes, but their divine senses could still detect. They could sense that the air whirlpool was wriggling faster and faster, and a gap was slowly opening up. It was as if a huge golden door was being opened. After dozens of breaths, the golden door finally opened completely. However, no one could use their divine senses to see what was inside. They could only sense nothingness and an ancient aura. Buzz, Li Heng put on a golden armor which covered his entire body. A huge golden sword appeared in his hand. His figure was perfect, and he looked like a god of war. "Idiot," Lu Li sighed speechlessly. This Li Heng was so dazzling. Was he purposely trying to attract hatred? He was so arrogant and cool. Once he entered, he would definitely attract the attention of formidable martial artists. If a formidable martial artist was unhappy, he would be attacked immediately. However, this armor was of a high level, and its defense must be strong. It was not possible for Li Heng to take it off. Lu Li didn't want to waste time. The others also took out their armors, weapons, and treasures, and flew toward the entrance slowly. Lu Li and Yu Yang were at the back. Seeing that Lu Li didn't leave, she stopped as well and waited for Lu Li to fly next to her. This golden flower seemed to feel safer following Lu Li. Seeing this, Mo Qianqian's eyes grew colder. But she said nothing. She held her head up proudly and followed Li Heng. Swish! Chapter 33:12. On a boundless land, 10 warriors suddenly appeared. These 10 warriors seemed to have appeared out of thin air. After appearing in midair, their bodies tumbled down. Boom, boom, boom. The 10 of them fell to the ground in a very ungraceful manner, and even smashed a few trees below them. The 10 martial artists were very strong, but at this moment, they were a little dizzy. Something is wrong with this place. Li Heng stood up shakily. He looked like he was in pain. He felt like his head was about to explode. Just now, they only saw a flash of white light. Why did they feel so dizzy? They couldn't even stand in the air and were still dizzy. It seemed There was an invisible force that made it hard for them to adapt. Was it because they were not accustomed to the environment? But the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the immortal region is really rich. Li Heng closed his eyes and took a few deep breaths. His face was filled with intoxication. He shouted, "This is the aura of the immortal domain, an intoxicating aura. Immortal domain, I'm coming. I'm coming to conquer you." Boom! Li Heng had just finished speaking when he felt a wave of dizziness. His body fell heavily to the ground, and his mouth was full of mud. Lu Li and Yu Yang, who were next to him, rolled their eyes. They sat on the ground with their legs crossed, consumed the elixirs, and rested. The other warriors did the same. The immortal region was very strange. There was a strange force field that made them uncomfortable. It took the powerful warriors an hour to get used to the situation here. They might not be 100% recovered, but they were at least 50% or 60% recovered. They started to spread out to explore and familiarize themselves with the situation in the immortal region so that they could recover to their peak state. They formed a group of 2 and agreed to meet here in 6 hours. They also agreed on a signal so that they could send a signal if they were in danger or needed help. Lu Li and Yu Yang walked together and explored to the east. They tried their best to use their psychic power, but found that it was limited here. Lu Li's psychic power could only reach a distance of several thousand miles, which was 10 times smaller than before. Yu Yang was the same. The space here was very stable, which was normal. The bigger the space, the more stable it was. It was reasonable that psychic power was limited. Lu Li and Yu Yang tried to fly. Their speed was also affected, but it was only slowed down by 3 or 4 times. The 2 of them did not dare to release their attack for fear of alerting the nearby ferocious beasts and immortal beasts. After searching east for more than 2 hours, he didn't find anything. He didn't even find a single living creature, not even an insect. They returned the way they came. Some of the experts had already returned. After waiting for a while, the rest of the martial artists returned. No one found anything. They didn't even find a single beast or insect. "Let's go." Li Heng waved his hand and said, "Let's walk out of this mountain range and head north." "That will definitely be correct." Lu Li and the others agreed. The group of powerful warriors didn't act rashly. They didn't fly. Instead, they ran at a moderate speed. Along the way, there were vast mountains and ancient trees everywhere. Some of the trees even had a diameter of 1,000 feet, looking like a small mountain. There were all kinds of ancient trees here. Many of them must have been there for tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years. The air of antiquity was emitted everywhere. There was also a smell of decay lingering on the land. This mountain range might be the largest one Lu Li and the others had ever seen. They had been walking for 7 or 8 days, and they still hadn't made it out. They didn't run into any living creatures either. There was no night here either. It was normal that there was no night here. Night only came once every half a month. Every time it came, it would take 3 days in the outside world. During these 7 or 8 days, they didn't run into the legendary thunderbolts. Of course, the immortal region was a big place. Not every place would have thunderbolts. If that happened, all the average warriors in the immortal region would have died. Swish! Another 2 days later, a glare suddenly lit up in front of them. Then a thunder dragon whooshed down and smashed into the mountain thousands of miles ahead of them. Boom! The entire ground shook. Next, thick smoke billowed out. Everyone scanned the area with their spiritual will and found that over 100 trees had been reduced to ashes. Moreover, there was a huge crater in the ground. The crater had a radius of over 100 zhang and was so deep that they could not see the bottom. The group of martial artists scanned the area with their divine senses for a moment before looking at each other in dismay. This legendary thunder was truly terrifying. The main thing was that the time it took for it to strike down was less than a breath's worth of time. If this thunder had struck them instead, they would not have been able to react in time and would have been struck by it. Even though the Grim Reaper had given each of them a thunderproof artifact, they would still be hurt. The thunderbolt was horrifying. After a while, the powerful warriors rushed over. They stood near the pit that was hit by the thunderbolt and observed for a while. Once again, they were shocked. Let's go. After a moment of observation, the powerful warriors moved on. However, they still hadn't made it out of the mountain after 4 or 5 days. It was getting dark. They all went back to their interspatial artifacts. According to the experience of the Grim Reaper, it was best not to gather together at night. On the off chance of a nightmare night, it could lead to a massacre. They would kill each other. Nightmare night was not a common occurrence in every place. It all depended on one's luck. Every nightmare night would cover an area of about 300,000 miles, and the places where it would appear were random. Sometimes, when a nightmare night covered a small city, all the warriors in the city could die if they did not flee at once. However, the nightmare night came without a sound. Nobody could tell if it was because of the strange energy of the nightmare night. Therefore, sometimes tragedies would happen. After Lu Li and the others went into their respective interspatial artifacts, they were all on high alert. They consumed some soul-nurturing pellets so that they could last longer after the nightmare night. Even though they were in an interspatial artifact, it would be pointless if the nightmare night shrouded this place. Even the most advanced interspatial artifacts could be affected. Lu Li and the others were lucky. The space they were in was not affected by the nightmare night. 3 days passed by quickly. The night was gone. It was daylight outside. They were all teleported out. Let's go. Li Heng waved his hand and became the leader of the team. Normally, Lu Li should be the leader of the team. Lu Li didn't mind. He didn't like to steal the limelight. As long as it was not a matter of principle and Li Heng didn't make trouble for him, Lu Li didn't want to get into a fight with this showy young master. 3 or 4 days later, they finally made it out of the mountain. In front of them was a boundless plain. In the distance was a huge river. The view was picturesque and beautiful. There is a battleship. Li Heng suddenly pointed to the sky and shouted. Everyone looked over. They were shocked. They saw a super battleship that they had never seen before. The battleship was more than 10,000 feet long and golden in color. Bathing in the sunlight, it was like a golden battleship that carried an ancient god of war, magnificent and magnificent. "Hi," Lu Li said coldly. Then, he put Yu Yang into his interspatial artifact and entered the magic realm. Even though the battleship was not flying in a straight line, if there were super powerful warriors on board, they could be detected easily. Chapter 33:13. Lu Li's words alarmed everyone. Seeing that Lu Li was gone, Li Heng and the others went into stealth mode. They were all powerful warriors trained in the god of death. Stealth was a basic skill. In an instant, all the warriors vanished. Not even psychic power could detect them. The powerful warriors in the battleship didn't check this side. The battleship was fast, twice as fast as Lu Li's. Soon, it disappeared into the distance. The battleship didn't make any sound. It was like a ghost ship. It was strange. Let's go. After a while, they were sure that the battleship had left. Li Heng came out, and so did the others. Lu Li came out and let Yu Yang out. She looked at Lu Li with admiration. Just now, she had been trying to sense Lu Li's existence, but she couldn't sense anything. Lu Li's art of concealment was really unparalleled in the world. Li Heng led the way. They still didn't fly. They walked along the plain at a steady pace. Everyone used psychic power to check around carefully. They had read the information. Li Heng had met their progenitor and learned about the situation in the immortal region. But there were too many uncertainties in the immortal region. Anything could happen. Therefore, those experiences were not of much use. Avian Sovereign gave them a suggestion. They should find a small city and choose a force of average size to join. They should stay there for a few years and get used to the immortal region before taking action. Seeing was believing. The situation in the immortal region was too complicated. It was always changing. Avian Sovereign's advice was useless. It was better for the 10 of them to see and understand for themselves. Avian Sovereign's mission was to stay in the immortal region for 500 years. After that, they could return to the chaotic star areas. If they could survive for 500 years, then the 10 warriors would more or less improve. They might even improve by leaps and bounds. When a warrior reached Li Heng's level, it was very difficult to break through to the great completion realm through closed-door cultivation. As a matter of fact, many powerful warriors of the 8 galaxies would come to the immortal region to explore after reaching the Saint King realm. They would either die here or return home after reaching the great completion realm. Therefore, Lu Li's goal was to find a small city and join a medium force to observe the situation in the immortal region. Lu Li was also preparing to join a force. Since he was not clear about the situation in the immortal realm, he could not rashly go to the eastern region. The immortal realm was truly vast. This plain seemed to be boundless. They walked for more than 10 days, but before the next night came, they did not find any cities, nor did they find any warriors, not even a single vicious beast. The second night arrived, and all the martial artists entered their spatial divine tools. Their luck was pretty good this time, and they were not enveloped by the nightmarish night. After the night passed, they continued forward. On the way, they would come across deep pits from time to time. Those deep pits were obviously blasted out by lightning. However, they did not encounter a second bolt of lightning. Their luck was pretty good. There are martial artists in front, and they are still fighting. Another 3 to 4 days later, Lu Li suddenly shouted. The other warriors did not sense anything. They tried to check with doubt. However, their psychic power was limited, and they could only reach a distance of several thousand miles. They found nothing within this range. Li Heng looked at Lu Li and asked, "Are you sure?" Lu Li did not look at him. He said in a determined tone, "Wait here. I will go over and have a look." Lu Li disappeared on the spot and moved forward quickly. He did not rely on psychic power, but on the trace of great Tao to sense fluctuations in space. His senses were dozens of times stronger than Li Heng's. Naturally, it was easy for him to find out. Thousands of miles ahead, Lu Li sensed something. There were 2 teams fighting. Most of them were Saint Emperors, and only a few were at the Great Emperor realm. There were 40 to 50 warriors in total. Okay, Lu Li observed for a while. Li Heng and the others caught up. They did not see Lu Li and were about to move forward when Lu Li showed up. He said in a low voice, "Don't go any further or we will be found out." Li Heng snorted and said, "Just dozens of Saint Emperors. They are not powerful. What is there to be afraid of? Kill them all, and we can get some information from them. If you want to go, then go." Lu Li was speechless. He said coldly, "I will not go with you. You could go if you want." Yu Yang nodded and said, "I will not go either. You could go if you want." Wan Shi added, "I think we should observe first. Don't act rashly. This is not the chaotic star region, but the immortal region." Mo Qianqian and Lady Li nodded at the same time. Li Heng pulled a long face and said nothing more. He just wanted to check. The fight was fierce, even tragic. Both sides had lost 7 or 8 powerful warriors, and more than a dozen were injured. But the remaining warriors were still fighting. They are from 2 forces. I think they are enemies, and they are fighting for territory or something, Li Heng said in a low voice. This time, not only Lu Li was speechless, even Mo Qianqian and the others rolled their eyes. How come they didn't realize that this guy was so stupid? Before, they just thought he was arrogant, talented, and had a bad personality. They didn't know he was such an idiot in this aspect. One side of the 2 teams was wearing silver armors, and the other side was wearing black armors. They were all wearing the same armor with badges. Even a little ruffian who had never seen the world would know that it was a battle between 2 forces of martial artists. Wouldn't they be fighting if they weren't enemies? Fighting for territory? If the 2 forces were not fighting for interests, then it would be because of hatred. What was the difference between saying it and not saying it? But Li Heng said it in such a tone, which insulted everyone's intelligence. Seeing that nobody was paying attention to him, Li Heng glanced over and said, "What? You don't trust my judgment?" Nobody answered him. Li Heng touched his nose in embarrassment. They kept waiting. After a while, Lu Li suddenly said, "Hide. The enemy's reinforcement is here." Buzzing, Lu Li put Yu Yang into his interspatial artifact. Yu Yang trusted Lu Li completely, so he didn't resist. Lu Li used secret stealth to hide. Wan Shi and Mo Qianqian went into stealth as well. Lady Li did the same after a pause. The other warriors were skeptical, but they went into stealth anyway. Swish, from the distance, came some noises. From the east and west came many battleships. They were not as big as the one they saw before, but they were still huge. There were dozens of battleships on both sides with warriors on board. Most of them were at the Emperor realm, and there were quite a few at the Saint King realm. All of them swarmed towards the battleships. Soon, the battle broke out. This time, it was even more chaotic. Retreat. Lu Li's voice was heard by all the warriors hiding. Li Heng and the others didn't dare to stay any longer. On the battleships on both sides, there must be powerful warriors that were close to the consummate realm. If they didn't retreat, they would all die here once they were discovered. Warriors on both sides didn't know them. They must have been mistaken as spies and killed. Luckily, the battleships were a bit far away. Li Heng and the others were keeping a low profile, so they were not discovered. Therefore, they retreated easily. They stopped after they retreated for hundreds of thousands of miles. They revealed themselves with fear still lingering in their eyes. If they heard Li Heng's words and rushed forward, the consequences would be miserable. They would all be dismembered. Li Heng's expressions changed. He was embarrassed. He lowered his head and said nothing. Every now and then, there was hatred in his eyes. Chapter 33:14. They moved on. Lu Li was still at the back of the team, but the core of the team began to change. Although Li Heng's status was noble, his battle prowess was valiant, and several young masters had previously followed his lead. But this was not the chaotic star region. It was a dangerous place, and they had to be responsible for their own lives. Naturally, they wanted to rely on a powerful warrior. Lu Li was the one they wanted to rely on. Lu Li had made several accurate judgments and made decisive orders, which had saved them from disaster twice. Lu Li, on the other hand, could find them easily with his skill of hiding. Lu Li's abilities aside, at the very least, he was strong in these two aspects, which was enough for them to have a better life. They moved on in another direction. This time, they ran into another battleship after a day. Lu Li sensed it in advance and told them to hide. The battleship flew past and soon disappeared into the distance. We're not far from the city. Let's go that way. Lu Li pointed to where the battleship came from. Li Heng pouted and said, "Do you know prophecy?" He's bragging to the heavens. Lu Li smiled but said nothing. He just walked in that direction. Yu Yang followed him without saying anything. Wan Shi and Lady Mo Qianqian followed as well. The other young masters followed after them. Li Heng didn't want to go with them, but he didn't have the courage to do it alone. It was dark again after a couple of days. They went back into the interspatial artifact. For hours later, Lu Li felt something was off. He felt something was wrong. It was not a serious feeling, but because of the trace of Tao, his senses were extraordinary. A glow rose in his eyes as he released his bloodline skill. His blood was boiling in his soul. His eyes turned dark red. He began to sense carefully. Soon, he deactivated the dragon transformation, put on his robe, and went out. He crushed a jade talisman. Yu Yang came out from the interspatial artifacts soon. Wan Shi and Mo Qianqian came out as well. They looked at Lu Li. Yu Yang asked, "What is it? Is there something wrong?" "This is a nightmare. Fly to the east as fast as you can. Go 300 miles in all directions. Don't stick together. Go 300,000 miles away, and we will meet at the highest mountain nearby." Lu Li shouted. Then, without thinking about anything else, he flew away as a sword. Yu Yang trusted Lu Li without a doubt, so he flew away as well. However, he was more than 300 miles away from Lu Li. Go! Wan Shi, Mo Qianqian, and misty also flew away. The rest of the young masters didn't dare to be careless and immediately flew away. Only Li Heng was left. He looked around and cursed in a low voice. There's nothing wrong with pretending to be mysterious. He paused for a moment, but still flew away. He was also 1,000 miles away. His speed was not at its maximum. He scanned his surroundings with his spiritual force and did not sense any problems. After flying for hundreds of thousands of miles, Li Heng felt that something was amiss. He felt himself becoming irascible. His breathing became slightly rapid, his blood flow accelerated, and his eyes slightly reddened. Many thoughts and faces appeared in his mind. Most of all, Lu Li's face was Lu Li's. He wished he could tear Lu Li into pieces. Not good. He was smart enough to know that Lu Li was right. This area was indeed shrouded by the nightmarish night. If he didn't leave this area as soon as possible, he might go berserk and eventually become a madman. All of a sudden, he took out a dagger and stabbed at his abdomen, leaving a hole. Blood gushed out from his abdomen. This was what Emperor Li taught him. If he was trapped in the nightmarish night, he had to keep hurting himself. The pain could make him more clear-headed. Only in this way could he have a chance to get out of the nightmarish night. Whoosh! He flew at the top of his speed. However, for every 3,000 miles, the desire to kill would come to his mind. He had to stab at his arms, thighs, and chest again and again. Bleeding would not kill him. Even if his legs were broken, he would not die. On the other hand, if he could not get out of the nightmarish night, he might become a madman after a few days. Just like that, he kept attacking himself. Soon, his body was riddled with holes. But he had flown for hundreds of thousands of miles. He should be 30,000 miles away from the nightmarish night at most. That being said, he was in a bad state. He had lost too much blood, and he was confused. His mind was filled with thoughts of killing. If it were not for the fact that there was a thought deep in his soul that kept reminding him to keep going, he would have stopped a long time ago. Boom! After another tens of thousands of miles, he felt his vision blacked out. He fell to the ground, creating a pit. His mind was in a mess. He swung the dagger in his hand and released waves of source energy. He saw illusions as if Lu Li was right in front of him, and he was going to smash Lu Li into pieces. Boom, 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 huge ravines appeared on the ground. Li Heng had forgotten that he was bleeding in many places. He swung the dagger in a frenzy and hacked at all directions. His face was ferocious, like a wild beast that had gone mad. Deep in his soul, there was still a trace of consciousness. But he could not control himself. Lu Li kept appearing in front of him, including Lu Li and Mo Qianqian. He became more and more furious, and his attacks became more and more frenzied. At this rate, he would lose his mind sooner or later. Before the nightmarish night was over, he would become a killing machine, a lunatic. Whoosh! From ahead of him came a noise. Li Heng looked over and saw a man coming. It was Lu Li. Without any hesitation, Li Heng stabbed at Lu Li with his dagger. Buzzing, unexpectedly, a ray of golden light came out from Lu Li's eyes. Then Li Heng felt the world in front of him dim down. He collapsed to the ground. Idiot! This Lu Li was real. He grabbed Li Heng with one hand and flew out quickly. His eyes were red, and there were thoughts of killing in his mind as well. But he had a strong will, and he had experienced many things. Therefore, nightmares didn't affect him too much unless he stayed in them for a long time. After the time for half an incense stick to burn, he flew out and arrived at a small hill. The other 8 were all there. They were a bit embarrassed, but they were in good condition. Young Master Li, the 2 young masters shouted in surprise to see Li Heng in such a miserable state. Lu Li left Li Heng to the young masters and walked to the side to cultivate indifferently, repaying evil with good. This was the thought that came to everyone's mind. Somehow, they admired Lu Li more. Wanshi looked at Lu Li with more respect. Mo Qianqian looked at Lu Li with mixed feelings, with a trace of hidden bitterness. Lady Li was still looking at Lu Li with hatred. End of this chapter. Chapter 33:15. Li Heng woke up after 14 to 16 hours. His injuries had recovered a lot. The young masters had given Li Heng a lot of pills, and Li Heng's body was very strong, so he recovered very quickly. It was still night. Li Heng opened his eyes, a little absent-minded. He stared blankly for a moment, then saw several familiar faces nearby. He recalled what had happened before he fainted. He looked at Lu Li not far away and asked, "Did Lu Li save me?" A young master named Chang nodded. "Yes, the inspector went into the nightmarish night and got you out." Li Heng's expression changed several times. Finally, he got up and walked to Lu Li. He bowed and said, "Thank you, Inspector, for saving my life." Lu Li opened his eyes, looked at Li Heng, and said, "Just like what you said before, our grievances are internal. Here, we are a team. We all came from the Grim Reaper. Here, we must help each other." Li Heng nodded, then turned around and sat down to heal his wounds. Lu Li also closed his eyes to cultivate. The others did the same and waited for the night to pass. There was a glimmer of light in the east. The night was over, and Li Heng's wounds were almost healed. They moved on. This time, they were much quieter. The horror of the nightmarish night made them feel the danger of the immortal region. They had been full of excitement and fantasies about the immortal region, but now they had calmed down. The immortal region was not a place to play. It was dangerous, and they could die if they were not careful. They continued forward, and half a day later, they encountered another warship, also flying from the east. Lu Li had predicted it, and went into hiding so they were not discovered. They trusted Lu Li's perception. Now, they would carry out Lu Li's orders without any hesitation. It was not because Lu Li was an inspector, but because they cherished their lives. After another half a day, it became a hilly area. Lu Li and the others finally found some small beasts which scared them. They saw an antelope-like animal. The animal was frightened by them and quickly ran away. Its speed was so fast that everyone was dumbfounded. A small beast could be as fast as an Emperor Realm warrior. They often saw some herbivorous beasts with horrifying speed. They also found some miraculous herbs nearby, but they were not of high grade. Maybe that was why no one picked them. If this was in the heavenly chaotic starfield, it would have been harvested long ago. After walking for hundreds of thousands of miles, a small lake appeared in front of them. The small lake was filled with immortal energy, and the lake water was most likely some kind of divine liquid. It actually gave off a faint fragrance. Wow, Wan Shi and Miss Emokiankianli's eyes lit up. They hadn't taken a bath for so long, and it was rare to encounter such a clear lake. For them, who loved beauty, this was an opportunity that they absolutely could not give up. The three young ladies had a discussion. Mo Qianqian took out a piece of artifact that could shield psychic power. Then, she told Lu Li and the others to stay 3,000 miles away. Although Lu Li and the others were helpless, as gentlemen, they couldn't refuse a lady's request. The 7 men each went in a different direction and stood guard 10,000 miles away. Mo Qianqian took out the treasure and enveloped the entire lake. Then, the 3 girls happily entered the lake to take a bath. Just as she took off her clothes and entered the lake, Mo Qianqian suddenly exclaimed. She flew into the air naked and shouted, "There's a monster at the bottom of the lake, run!" Wan Shi and Miss Li took off their clothes as well. They flew up in fright at once. They used psychic power to check and found a hole at the bottom of the lake. At the moment, a serpent came out from the bottom of the hole, like a flood dragon. A chilly chi and energy enveloped the 3 of them, and they sensed a fatal danger in their souls. Swish, swish. All of a sudden, the entire lake was filled with chilly air. Then the chilly air spread out. Before Mo Qianqian and the others could react, an area with a radius of 300 miles around the lake was frozen. Mo Qianqian and the others were frozen as well, but not completely. It was just that their speed was greatly affected. They didn't even have the time to put on their clothes. They took out their weapons and artifacts to fight in a hurry. Mo Qianqian crushed a jade talisman as well, asking for help. She sensed a fatal danger from the serpent down there. Since they were frozen, their speed was greatly reduced. It would be difficult for them to fight back. Buzzing, the 3 of them put on armors to prevent themselves from being exposed. None of them ran away. They all used their artifacts and weapons to strike at the serpent. Boom, boom, boom. The trio's attacks hit the serpent. The trio's attacks were not weak, but they only managed to shatter a few of the serpent's scales. The serpent's tail suddenly lashed out. The tail was like a steel whip as it swept towards Mo Qianqian with a chilly air. Mo Qianqian could have dodged it, but with her speed greatly reduced, she was sent flying. She spat out blood in midair. Immortal beast. Chan Chan exclaimed. The serpent was definitely an immortal beast. The strength of its attack could barely match an expert that was infinitely close to a perfected stage. If it wasn't an immortal beast, how could it have such powerful strength? Buzz, Miss Li had used the desolate race's divine powers, causing time to instantly slow down. However, the horns on the python's head lit up as she roared, sending out a shockwave. Following that, the laws of time were rendered ineffective. The python's tail lashed out heavily as Miss Li was sent flying while spewing blood. Whoosh! Luanxi was just about to run away when the serpent's tail lashed out again. This time, it didn't hit Luanxi away. Instead, it became soft and entangled Luanxi. Then, the serpent opened its blood-red mouth and reached towards Luanxi. Luanxi felt a surge of strange energy coming from the tail, immobilizing her. She turned pale with fright. She saw the blood-red mouth and smelled a foul smell. She shouted in terror, "Help!" Whoosh! A man flew over in a blur. He was covered in silver-gray dragon scales. He had dragon wings on his back, dragon horns on his head, and a dragon tail on his buttocks. His chi and energy were astonishing. His silver eyes were as cold as ice. Before he arrived, he had already shouted, "Bastard, let go of that girl!" Buzzing, Lu Li's eyes glowed in golden light as he released a formation skill. But it didn't seem to have much effect on the serpent. The serpent paused for a moment. Then, it turned to Lu Li with its glowing red eyes. It seemed to have sensed danger. The serpent swung its tail at Lu Li and smashed Luanxi away. Lu Li was not afraid at all. He swung his claws at the serpent's iron tail. His hand glowed in a dark light. That was this strange energy in his body. At the same time, he mobilized the liquid of perdition and reached at the serpent's tail. Boom! With a muffled sound, Lu Li was flung away for dozens of miles. But the serpent's tail was smashed. The flesh on the tail was corroding. Black smoke rose. The serpent screamed in pain. It writhed in midair and attacked Lu Li again in rage. "Bastard! Your Grandpa Li is here." With a loud shout, Li Heng, who was wearing a golden armor and holding a golden sword, dashed over. His golden glare was as dazzling as the sun. It was quite eye-catching. Chapter 33:16. Swish, Li Heng's sword enlarged, and he swung it. 7 kinds of lights glowed on the sword. With domineering momentum, Li Heng cut at the neck of the boa. Woo-woo! The boa let out a strange cry. The horns on its head glowed again. Then it opened its mouth and breathed out a cloud of gray air that enveloped Li Heng. Boom! The 7-colored sword light heavily chopped down on the python's neck. Li Heng's combat power was very fierce. The scales on the python's neck were shattered one by one, and a deep bloody mark was left on it. However, the python's head was not chopped off. Young Master Li, watch out. Save young Master Li. Several young masters shouted in alarm. Li Heng was shrouded by the gray air and turned into an ice sculpture. He could not move at all. The boa opened its mouth and was about to swallow Li Heng. Buzzing right at that moment, the space around the boa began to tremble. Lu Li sneaked over without a sound. He stabbed his claws into the wound on the boa's neck that Li Heng cut open. His hands continued to move, and flesh and blood flew everywhere. In an instant, the giant python's neck was torn apart. The giant python's head was smashed to the ground, but its body was still twisting in midair. Lu Li was covered in blood. He didn't stop. He flew up to Li Heng and broke the ice. Then, he threw Li Heng, who was numb from the cold, away. Lu Li turned around in midair and flew toward the body of the boa. The body was not completely dead. It seemed that a new head was growing out. Bang, bang, bang. Lu Li kept waving his claws. Blood and flesh were scattered everywhere. The air was dyed red by the blood. In just a moment, the body of the boa was torn apart by Lu Li. In his hand was a golden core the size of a head. It must be the primordial core of an immortal beast which could be worth a lot. Looking at Lu Li, who was standing in midair, his scales that were dyed red with blood, his dragon claws that were still dripping blood, and his eyes that were devoid of any human emotions, everyone felt a chill down their spines. God of slaughter. At the moment, Lu Li was like a god of death to them. If they dared to fight against Lu Li, they would end up like the boa, torn into pieces. Xiao. Lu Li dived into the lake and swam around to wash off the blood. Then, he dashed into the interspatial artifact. After a while, Lu Li changed into a clean robe and returned to his original appearance. He looked at the pale-faced Li Heng and said, "We have to leave immediately. The blood of this immortal beast may alarm nearby immortal beasts or powerful warriors. Go." Yu Yang waved his hand, and one of the young masters brought Li Heng along. The group quickly advanced, and after walking for more than 2 hours, they encountered another small lake. This time, Imo, Qianqian, and the others didn't say that they were going to bathe. This time, everyone was even more silent. Li Heng didn't say anything either. The group moved forward quickly, almost without stopping. Along the way, they often ran into battleships. Lulu was right. There must be a city here, or else there wouldn't be so many battleships flying out. As expected, after traveling for another 4 or 5 days, a huge mountain range appeared in front of them. At the top of the mountain range was a huge city. This city was arranged in layers, and one could see the whole city from below. Immortal palaces. Lu Li's eyes became misty. He saw illusions outside the 3 galaxies. There were many immortal palaces, which were exactly the same as the buildings in the city. This was an immortal city, and inside the city, there were many beautiful and magnificent palaces and immortal palaces. At the moment, there was a faint white mist in the city, which made it even more beautiful and enchanting. It was obvious. This was a small city. It was about the same size as the main city of the Chaotic Star region. But according to the information, this was a small city in the Immortal region. Even though they could see the city, they were even more nervous. Nobody knew what was going to happen next. They stopped and stood there for the time for one incense stick to burn. Lu Li looked at Mo, Qianqian, and the others and said, "Disguise yourself and change your body shape. Otherwise, I am afraid that you will be targeted by some perverted powerful warriors as soon as you enter the city." Lady Li and Luanxi blushed. They didn't insist because Lu Li was telling the truth. In the Chaotic Star region, no warrior dared to mess around. But here, any Asmodean could kill them. Therefore, they had to be careful. Mo Qian's body slowly wriggled. Her originally perfect figure became mediocre. Her entire body became thin and flat. Her face also became old. From the original super beauty, she became an ordinary middle-aged woman. Luanxi and Lady Li began to disguise themselves as well. The Grim Reaper had disguising skills. These were basic skills. But Lu Li didn't have to learn them because he had the powerful skill of disguise. Luanxi and Lady Li became mediocre. Lady Li became a strong woman. Even though her face was pretty, she couldn't attract any men. "Let's go." Lu Li waved his hand. The 10 warriors walked into the city quickly. At the foot of the mountain, they saw a straight path leading to the city above. The stairs were made of white jade, which looked gorgeous. It was as if the jade stairs could lead them to heaven. There were warriors guarding at the foot of the stairs, one on the left and the other on the right. They were not powerful, only at the Emperor realm. They wore black armors with swords hanging on their waists. Their expressions were cold and arrogant. To enter the city, one needed a token of the Immortal region. Everyone knew this. The token of the Immortal region required celestial stones. Lu Li and the others didn't lack celestial stones. Yi Yang went up to negotiate. They spent 10 billion celestial stones and bought 10 tokens of the Immortal region. They successfully entered the city. Beautiful, gorgeous, magnificent. This was Lu Li's first impression after they entered the city. Lady Li and the others were fascinated. It would be nice to live in a city like this forever, just like living in a fairyland. There weren't many warriors in the city. It wasn't like the Chaotic Star region where the streets were crowded with warriors. Many warriors must be cultivating in palaces. Lu Li and the others didn't dare to use their psychic power. They glanced around and found that there were hundreds of thousands of palaces in the city. Lu Li and the others were confused even though they had entered. They didn't know what to do next. They wandered around on the street and found tavern. There were more than 100 warriors in the tavern. Lu Li and the others went in and asked for a private room. Then, Yu Yang went to gather information. 2 hours later, Yu Yang came back. He found out that the city was controlled by a force called the Milky Way Society. There were 2 other forces in the city, but they were not as powerful as the Milky Way Society. Martial Arts Hall, Palace of Immortals Inquires. These were the names of the other 2 forces. Most of the warriors in the city belonged to the 3 forces. Of course, some of the powerful warriors lived alone. The seniors of the Grim Reaper told them that they must join a force to familiarize themselves with the situation in the Immortal region. Then, they could see how they develop. It was better not to join a force at first because it was not easy to get rid of them. It would be troublesome if they wanted to leave. Therefore, the Martial Arts Hall and the Palace of Immortals Inquires were their targets. The leaders of the 2 forces were 3 powerful warriors that were infinitely close to the completion realm. However, there were only 3 of them. The Milky Way Society had more than a dozen powerful warriors that were infinitely close to the completion realm. Chapter 33:17. They began to discuss whether they should join the Hall of Martial Arts or the Palace of Immortals Inquiries. The 2 forces were similar in strength and hostile to each other. Only one of the 2 could join. In the end, they voted. 7 out of 10 chose the Palace of Immortals Inquiries because the name sounded better than the Hall of Martial Arts. There was a young master who wanted to join 2 different forces, but Lu Li and Yu Yang both stopped him. Unity was the only way to stay together. If they joined different forces and hostile forces, they could only watch as they died if something happened. Since they had already made up their minds, there was nothing more to say. After a hearty meal, the group headed towards the Immortals Seeking Palace. The main hall of the Immortals Seeking Palace was easy to find. It was an extremely large palace. Stop! Outside the main hall stood a team of warriors led by 2 Saint Kings. Even though they were at the initial stage, it was too extravagant for Saint Kings to guard the door. It was Yu Yang who went to talk to them. When he heard that they were here to join the Palace of Immortals Inquiries, his attitude was much better. A Saint King led Lu Li and the others inside. The palace was magnificent and splendid. Of course, they did not stay in the main hall. They went to a side hall. There was a huge desk in the side hall. Behind the desk sat an old man in a golden robe. He had golden hair and looked like a lion. The Saint King bowed and reported, "Lord Jean, they are here to join the Palace of Immortals Inquiries." Lord Jean looked up and glanced at Lu Li and the others. His eyes lit up, especially when he saw Li Heng and Mo Qianqian. It was as if he had seen treasures. He waved his hand, and the Saint King left. Lord Jean stood up and said with a smile, "You have just arrived at the Immortal region, right? Did they come from the 8 major star regions?" Li Heng nodded and said, "Lord Jean, we have just arrived at the Immortal region. We are from the Chaotic Star region." "The Chaotic Star region." Lord Jean nodded and said, "It is said that the Chaotic Star region is the most chaotic place in the 8 galaxies. Sure enough, there are geniuses over there. All of you are young talents. The Immortal Seeking Palace welcomes you to join us. I can also promise you that in the Immortal Seeking Palace, you will receive treatment that is commensurate with your strength. You will also have great development in the Immortal Seeking Palace, and you may even become the top of the Immortal Seeking Palace. You will grow and strengthen together with the Immortal Seeking Palace." Lord Jin's battle strength was very strong, probably even stronger than Li Heng. However, his attitude was very friendly, even a little too friendly. Of course, any small force would be overjoyed to see Li Heng and the others join them. Li Heng, Mo Qianqian, Yu Yang, and the others were at the middle and early stages of the Saint King realm. Only Lu Li was still at the Emperor realm. None of this was important. What was important was that they were very young. There was a lot of room for growth. If they were given a few hundred years, perhaps 2 or 3 experts who were infinitely close to the Paragon realm would be born. At that time, they would truly be able to lead the Immortal Seeking Palace to soar. Lord Jean knew very well that many of the experts from the 8 major star fields were here to gain experience. Once they broke through, they would return. But Lord Jean didn't care, because as long as these experts were here, they would serve the Immortal Seeking Palace. What if they felt that the Immortal region was good and didn't want to go back? Many of the geniuses from the 8 major star fields eventually stayed in the Immortal region and became the overlords of the Immortal region. Lord Jin's good attitude made Li Heng a little smug. He waved his hand and said, "Lord Jin, you are too kind. We are new here and still need your guidance and guidance. It doesn't matter if we become a high-level official or not. The important thing is to make a group of good friends, isn't it?" Lord Jin didn't care about young Master Li's arrogance. He smiled and asked, "Are you sure you want to join our Immortal Seeking Palace? Our Palace Master is in closed-door cultivation. I will take you to see our Assistant Palace Master now." Yes. Li Heng didn't even ask for Lu Li's opinion. He answered directly as if he was the leader of the group. Lu Li didn't say anything. His eyes flickered. He felt that this Lord Jean was a little too nice. He didn't say anything. The group followed Lord Jean out of the hall and walked to a palace in the back. After more than a dozen rounds, they arrived at a relatively small but exquisite and gorgeous palace. Lord Jean went in first. After a while, he came out and let the others in. There was a big hall inside with a man wearing a mask of a ferocious beast sitting there. They didn't know what race this man was from. He was huge, like a human-shaped beast. Sitting there, he was dignified without being angry. His chi and blood were astonishing. A powerful warrior who was infinitely close to the consummate realm. Lu Li recognized him at first glance. The other warriors sensed it as well. All of them had solemn expressions. Powerful warriors were worthy of respect. This was not only respect for powerful warriors, but also for martial arts. Everyone bowed. This assistant palace master had a pair of blue eyes that had a soul-stirring power. It was as if he could see through everyone's hearts and all their secrets. This assistant palace master didn't say anything. He just looked at them for the time for half an incense stick to burn. Then he said, "Name." His voice was deep. There was an invisible magic in it that no one could resist. "Lord, my name is Li Heng." Li Heng stepped out from the crowd and was the first to answer. The others also went out and reported their names. Lu Li came out last and said his name. Assistant Palace Master nodded. Then he ordered Lord Jean. Lord Jean put them in the 5th team. Li Heng and Lu Li will be the vice commanders of the 5th team. The rest will be members. They will be treated at the 8th rank, and the rest will be treated at the 7th rank. Tell them about the situation and rules of the palace. Lord Jean was surprised. It was understandable that Li Heng was appointed as the vice commander. But Lu Li, a warrior of the Emperor realm, was also appointed as the vice commander, and he was also treated at the 8th rank. Was there something special about Lu Li? Yu Yang and the others were not surprised, but they admired this assistant palace master's foresight. Assistant palace master didn't explain. He looked at the others and said, "Now that you have joined the Palace of Immortals' Inquiries, we are one family. If there is anything you don't understand or need, you can go to Lord Jean. I hope you can all live and grow happily in the Immortal region." "Thank you, Assistant Palace Master." Lu Li and the others bowed to him. Lord Jean led them out and into a big palace in the back. Pointing to the big palace, he said, "There are more than a dozen rooms here. Each of you can live in one. Later, maids will bring you your robes, badges, and other necessities. Also, there are rules. The maids will explain to you the situation of the Palace of Immortals' Inquiries and the Milky Way City. You will live in the city for 3 months. Familiarize yourself with the city, and then you will be sent out to carry out tasks." Rustle, rustle, rustle. The 10 maids walked in and stood behind each of Lu Li and the other girls. The maids were of the same race, like the cat lady. They were not powerful, only at the 5th tribulation. They seemed to be very obedient. "Master, please come with me." The soft voice of the maid came. She led Lu Li to a room. The maid had the best looks and figure. She was dressed thinly, which was tempting. "Third Master." Chapter 33:18. These maids were not only there to serve them, but also to guide them. They were to help them get familiar with the city and understand everything about the palace of Immortals and Choirs. Of course, these beautiful maids could also perform some special services. As long as their masters had any requests, they could satisfy them. In addition to maids, there were also maids of this race. They were also handsome, gentle, and skilled. They could serve female warriors and male warriors as well. From these maids, everyone learned a lot of information. They had an intuitive understanding of the palace of Immortals and Choirs and the city of Immortals and Choirs. The city of Immortals and Choirs was not too chaotic because the Milky Way Society was so powerful that they had set down strict laws. Anyone who violated the laws would die. The palace of Immortals and Choirs and the Hall of Martial Arts had always been enemies. However, they would unite in the face of external enemies. Recently, there had been foreign invasions. Several forces had united and were fighting against the city of Immortals and Choirs. The Hall of Martial Arts of the Milky Way Society and the Palace of Immortals and Choirs had lost many warriors. Therefore, the arrival of Lu Li and the others made the Palace of Immortals and Choirs happy. This was a powerful new force with unlimited potential. The Palace of Immortals and Choirs had a ranking system. The highest rank was 10, which belonged to the Palace Master and Deputy Palace Masters. Lu Li and Li Heng could enjoy the treatment of the 8th rank, which was already good enough. If they made some contributions, they could enjoy the treatment of the 9th rank, which would be the top management of the Palace of Immortals and Choirs. Lu Li and the others had to go on a mission in 3 months. By then, they would have to go to an important place with resources in the north. It was also the front line of the battlefield where the competition was fierce. There were not many warriors in the Palace of Immortals and Choirs, only more than 5,000. The lowest was at the Emperor realm. There were 5 or 600 Saint Kings. There were 10 teams, and the warriors in these teams were all on missions. There were 300 warriors in each team. Deputy Palace Master already thought highly of Lu Li and the others to be deputy commanders. After all, they had just arrived, and they had already been promoted. Of course, Deputy Palace Master knew very well about Li Heng and Lu Li's abilities. Li Heng's realm was too high. Lu Li could feel the strong, killing intent from him. It was something that could only be obtained after killing millions of powerful warriors. The Palace of Immortals and Choirs had many resources. These resources were not available in the Chaotic Star Field. Lu Li and the others all received some. The elixir, given by a small force in the Immortal region, was of a higher level than the God of Death. Due to the recent war, the city had become much more desolate. Furthermore, the Tiana Society had ordered that no battles were to break out in the city. Therefore, the city was very safe. There were some strange places to practice in the city, such as practice rooms, Taoiseal lands, special places to practice, and sky and earth mirrors. These places were not found in the Chaotic Star area. For the rest of the time, Lu Li and the others began to wander around the city. Since they had the token of the Palace of Immortals Inquiries, many places were open to them for free. There were also many martial artists from the Immortal Seeking Palace in the city. Yu Yang was very good at socializing. Instead of cultivating, he constantly made friends. Because he had a large number of celestial stones, Yu Yang was generous. Moreover, he had the combat strength of a mid-stage Saint Emperor. In just half a month, Yu Yang had made a lot of friends and obtained a lot of information. The Immortal Seeking Palace's situation wasn't too good. Even the Milky Way City's situation wasn't too good. This was because the enemy they were facing was an alliance of 5 major powers. Right now, they were only launching probing attacks. Once a decisive battle broke out, they might not be able to withstand it. By that time, the Milky Way City would change hands. They could either surrender or run away. But judging by the situation, there wouldn't be a decisive battle in a short time. Something had happened in the territory of the alliance of the 5 forces. They wouldn't attack here until the matter was settled. It was also possible that there would be internal strife. By then, the Milky Way Society would win. The Milky Way Society was also looking for an alliance to fight together. During the 3 months, nothing happened. Lu Li and the others had a more intuitive understanding of the immortal region. First of all, they felt that there were many powerful warriors in the immortal region. Saint emperors here were not valuable and could be found everywhere. Secondly, there were too many treasures and strange places that couldn't be found in the outside world. Lu Li and the others heard many legends. It was said that some weak warriors entered some strange places and were trapped for hundreds or thousands of years. As long as they could come out alive, their combat strength would soar. The most legendary one was the master of a big city in the southern region. 3,000 years ago, he was a peak Emperor Realm warrior who was being hunted by his enemies. He was chased into a dangerous place. Then, he was trapped there for 2,500 years. After coming out, he broke through and was infinitely close to the Great Perfection Realm. Moreover, his combat strength could sweep away many experts who were infinitely close to the Great Perfection Realm. He killed his way back to Bo City and killed more than a dozen experts who were infinitely close to the Great Perfection Realm. He suppressed the rest of the experts in the city and became the new master of Bo City. 2,500 years. This might be a long time, but it was really short for Saint Emperors. Not to mention 2,500 years. If they could become experts infinitely close to the Great Perfection Realm, they would feel that it was worth it even if they spent 25,000 years. The third feeling was that the immortal region was really dangerous, especially in the wild, or some dangerous places, some treasure lands. Many places were hiding powerful beasts, peerless old demons, and unknown dangers. If you wandered around randomly, you definitely wouldn't live for more than a year. There was another point. There were some native tribes in the immortal region. They lived in the mountains and lakes and cultivated in seclusion. They hated outsiders very much because the immortal region was originally their home, but now was occupied by outsiders. Apart from a few cities and regions, the majority of the immortal region was occupied and ruled by outsiders. Outsiders robbed their homes, occupied their resources and treasures, and killed their clansmen. Therefore, if these tribes discovered outsiders, as long as they could kill them, they would do everything they could to kill them. There were 9 great realm kings in the immortal region. Apart from one great realm king, the rest were all outsiders. When the 4th and 5th heavens collapsed, most of the experts escaped, and more than 30% of them entered the immortal region. These 30% of experts quickly occupied the entire immortal region and became the ruler of the immortal region. Back then, there were countless strong tribes in the immortal region, but most of them were slaughtered. Only a small number of survivors escaped into the mountains and lakes to hide. These survivors hated outsiders to the extreme. They also disguised themselves. If they didn't say it, no one would know that they were natives of the immortal region. If they discovered a lone martial artist who wasn't strong and could be killed, they would definitely cut off your head. What a headache. Lu Li was holding a map of the southern region in his hand. The map was filled with dense circles. The whole map was like a pockmarked face. There was almost no place that wasn't marked with red circles. This was the map that Yang bought. The places marked with red circles all represented danger and shouldn't be entered easily. If there was a place marked with a circle, try to avoid it. This was the relatively safe southern region. If it was the eastern region, how dangerous would it be? Was there any place that was safe? He might have to cross more than half of the eastern region to reach the city of mystic armor. Could he find Lu Xiaobai alive? P.S. Today I went back to my hometown to visit my ancestors. After climbing the mountain for a day, I can't write anymore. I will take a day off and update as usual tomorrow. Chapter 33:19. 3 months passed in the blink of an eye. Everyone had more or less familiarized themselves with life in the immortal domain. Lord Jean arranged for them to be stationed at a place. There were also over 100 cultivators traveling with them. Most of them were Saint Emperors. All of them were heading to the Green Cliff Mountain. The Mountain of Green Cliff was the most resourceful place of the Palace of Immortals Inquires. The Mountain of Green Cliff was rich in a type of cyan crystals, a top-level elixir for cultivation. It happened to be at the north, at the front of the battle. The Palace of Immortals Inquires had to either give up this place of resources or fight to the death. The Palace of Immortals Inquires sent out a battleship of average size. It was neither slow nor fast. The leader was a patriarch of the Palace of Immortals Inquires. His realm was similar to Li Heng's, but he was much more powerful. After all, he had lived for tens of thousands of years, and he had been living in the immortal region. This patriarch Lu was polite to Li Heng and kind of Lu Li as well. He was a bully. Li Heng and Lu Li were young and had a lot of room for growth. Therefore, patriarch Lu had to be nice to them. What if they grew up and became warriors that were infinitely close to the consummate realm? Mo Qianqian and the others disguised themselves. They had been living here for months, but they were not familiar with the situation. It was better to keep a low profile. Women could get into trouble if they didn't take care of themselves. They didn't fly for long. They arrived at the mountain of Green Cliff after a month. As soon as they got closer, they could feel the atmosphere of war. There were traces of war in many places. There were huge ravines on the plains. There were bones in some places, and the land was scorched. Many fortresses were built on the mountain of Green Cliff. They were not as fancy as the fortresses in the cities. They were built in a circle with runes activated. There were teams of warriors patrolling nearby. All of them wore cyan armors and had cyan swords, spears or sabers in their hands. Lu Li was given the armors and weapons as well. It didn't matter if they used the weapons or not. It was one of the rules of the Palace of Immortals that they had to wear armors for missions. The mountain of Green Cliff was large and divided into 6 battle zones. Lu Li and the others arrived at the South Zone. Patriarch Lu took them to the 5th team and met their leader. The commander had the same surname as Grand Elder Lu. He was called Luther, and he was over 2 meters tall. His face was covered in tattoos, and his arms were as thick as his legs. He had a tail and 3 eyes, and it was obvious that he was from an ancient race. He glanced over to Lu Li and then to Li Heng and Lu Li. He asked in a deep voice, "You are the vice commanders appointed by Deputy Master?" Li Heng walked out of the crowd and nodded proudly. "Commander Lu, this one is Li Heng. It was 2nd Palace Master who appointed us. We have come to lend Commander Lu a hand." "Oomph." Luther coldly snorted and said, "If you can take 3 moves from me, you can become the vice commander of the 5th battle team. Otherwise, you can go back to where you came from." 3 moves? A trace of anger appeared on Li Heng's face. This Luther's cultivation was about the same as his, but he actually looked down on him so much. Not to mention 3 moves, Li Heng even felt that he was not weaker than him. Li Heng cupped his hands and said, "Please instruct me, Commander. But where should we fight? It's not a good idea to do it here, is it?" Patriarch Lu seemed to be used to this. He didn't say anything. He just smiled and said nothing. "Come with me." Luther walked out in strides and then shouted, "5th battle team, gather up." Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. One powerful warrior after another flew out from the fortress and gathered up. Luther didn't say anything. He walked directly to a fortress. There were 2 guards outside the fortress. They saluted to Luther as soon as they saw him. They looked at Luther with respect. Li Heng and Lu Li were confused, but they didn't ask anything. They followed Luther to the fortress. As soon as they entered the gate of the fortress, they saw a white glare, and then they entered a small world. The other warriors of the 5th battle team followed in with excitement. Mo Qianqian and the others followed them. Patriarch Lu and some warriors from other battle zones followed them, ready to watch a show. This small world must have been made for the purpose of practicing martial arts. The space was stable, and it had a radius of more than 30,000 miles, enough for a fight. Luther stood in midair, looked at Lu Li and Li Heng coldly, and said, "According to our rules, if you want to be a deputy commander, you must take the test. My test is to survive 3 moves from me. If you can do that, you will be the deputy commander of the 5th battle team." Ha ha ha. The 2 pretty boys look so fragile. I don't think they can survive 1 move, let alone 3. This handsome young man has a high realm, but I can tell that he is just a good-looking but useless guy. It will be good enough if he can survive 2 moves from Lord Liu. The other one is at the Imperial Warrior realm. Is he a relative of the Deputy Master? Otherwise, how can he be a Deputy Commander? I think he will be killed by Commander Liu in 1 move. Huh. You have to have some real skills to be our Deputy Commander. We will not accept this. People were discussing. Most of them were mocking and questioning. Even though Li Heng's realm was high, nobody recognized him. Li Heng was too young. One look, and they could tell that he was a young master raised by a big family. They had seen many of such people. They had high realms, but weak abilities. Who want to go first? Luther shouted in a low voice. His voice was very distinctive, as if he had a piece of iron stuck in his throat. It made people feel uncomfortable. Li Heng took the responsibility. He flew out, bowed, and said, "Please enlighten me, Commander Liu. Look out." A cyan standard spear appeared in Commander Liu's hand. It looked like an average spear. He shouted and then dashed over like a shooting star. He was so fast that he swung the spear at Li Heng like a stick. A golden sword appeared in Li Heng's hand. He moved the sword and stabbed at Li Heng. In an instant, he made hundreds of moves. Hundreds of strands of sword chi shot out. Those strands of sword chi didn't fly away. Instead, they entangled in front of him and formed a shield. The shield rotated slowly, looking very dazzling. Boom! A huge force came, and the spear fiercely smashed into the huge shield. Then the huge shield instantly exploded. The long sword continued to smash into the long sword in Li Heng's hand with an unstoppable momentum. Bang, bang, bang. The arm guard on Li Heng's arm exploded. Many of the muscles on his hands exploded. Blood gushed out. His body flew thousands of miles away. Blood gushed out of his mouth, and his eyes were filled with shock. Just now, he felt a huge force hit him. The power of that move seemed to be infinitely close to a paragon. Fortunately, he didn't take it head-on and retreated. Otherwise, if the spear had hit his chest, he would have been seriously injured. You have some strength. Commander Liu looked at Li Heng with disdain and said, "There are 2 more moves. Do you want to continue?" Li Heng wiped the blood from his mouth with a trembling hand and said, "Come, Commander Liu, let's fight. If I die here, it will be because Li Heng is not skilled enough. No one else can be blamed." Chapter 33:20. Li Heng had many shortcomings, but at this moment, Lu Li and the others recognized his bravery. As a descendant of the Grim Reaper, he should not be afraid of death or battles. Only in this way could he be a qualified Grim Reaper. Commander Liu showed no emotion, but his eyes were not as cold as before. He moved again like a gust of wind. Once again, he swung his spear at Li Heng. Exploding energy sword. Li Heng shouted. Then, he continued to stab with his sword. Rays of golden sword chi whooshed out and exploded in front of him. This was the unique skill of the Li family. It was a skill that could kill 3,000 enemies, but also hurt oneself. Li Heng and the others would be hurt by the sword chi. Commander Liu's move was powerful, but Li Heng had not figured out a way to counter it yet. He had to resort to this skill that would hurt both sides. Good. Commander Liu nodded. Still, the spear appeared on Li Heng's left and smashed at him. But Li Heng stabbed to his left, and there was a violent explosion as well. Boom, boom, boom. Li Heng and Commander Liu were both smashed away. Li Heng's cyan armor was broken, but a golden armor appeared over his body. That was given to him by the Li family. The golden armor was much stronger than the cyan armor. Even with top-grade battle armor, a trickle of blood still seeped out of the corner of Li Heng's mouth. Commander Liu seemed unaffected. He looked at Li Heng and said, "Your battle armor isn't bad, but I will not be merciful in my next move. Don't blame me if you die. Bring it on." Li Heng was eager to fight. He shouted, "I will use my move as well. Commander Liu, be careful." Ha ha ha. Commander Liu laughed and said, "Do it. If you can kill me, then the position of commander is yours." Li Heng nodded. His chi and energy began to grow. As a descendant of the Li family, he naturally had his strong moves. Otherwise, he wouldn't be the most powerful among the young generation of the Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper didn't care about status, but real combat abilities. Li Heng's chi and energy began to grow. This was not just on the surface. This was real, one that could oppress the enemy. The long sword in his hand lit up, and it grew brighter and brighter. It was obvious that he was accumulating power. Commander Lu did not immediately act, instead allowing Li Heng to build up his strength. As the commander of the 5th Battle Squad of Immortal's Seeking Palace, he had his pride. If he couldn't even withstand the deputy commander's killing move, what face did he have to command these hundreds of powerhouses? Kill. Li Heng finished accumulating power, his aura rising to the peak. He had already become a golden sun, dazzling to the extreme. Many martial artists did not dare to look at him and could only use their divine telekinesis to probe him. This was because their eyes would feel a stinging pain if they looked at him for too long. Li Heng roared and shot up like a comet. A powerful pressure rushed out with an earth-shattering force. The surrounding spiritual chi of heaven and earth was affected at this moment and pressed down on Commander Lu. Commander Lu had a feeling that the world was going to suppress him. Not bad. Lu nodded. For the first time, his opinion of Li Heng changed. Disregarding everything else, Li Heng could defeat many Saint Kings with this move. This attack with the pressure of the world could suppress the enemy's strength. If it were a regular early Saint King, they might even be immobilized and killed by Li Heng easily. A few gasps rang out nearby. Shock appeared on the faces of many of the warriors of the 5th Battle Squad. They were only watching from the side, but they all felt their hearts throbbing. Just how terrifying would it be if it was Commander Lu who was facing the pressure of the world? Come at me. Commander Lu became stern. The spear in his hand began to tremble as he charged forward quickly. He moved faster and faster, and the sound of his spear piercing through the air became sharper and sharper. In the end, he disappeared, and so did his spear. All that was left was a spear shadow that stabbed toward the golden sun with a piercing aura. Slash! Li Heng roared out and swung his sword down heavily. All the surrounding spiritual chi gathered on his sword. The golden light around him was drawn in as well, all of it gathering on his sword. Then a golden ray of sword light whooshed across the sky toward the black spear shadow. In the sky, the 2-mile-long golden ray of sword light and the 1,000-feet-long black spear shadow collided, one on the left and the other on the right. At this moment, all the onlookers held their breaths. Naturally, they were nervous. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion resounded, as if 2 planets had collided together. The sound was so loud that it deafened all the martial artists' ears. In the center of the explosion, there was a huge hole. Following that, cracks extended to all sides. The horrifying shockwave came over. Lu Li and the others were forced to retreat for more than 300 miles. Some weaker warriors were smashed away. Impressive. Lu Li never closed his eyes. He had been watching the fight. At this moment, he exclaimed from the bottom of his heart. Many people thought it was a draw, but Lu Li knew better. When the golden ray of sword light and the black spear shadow collided, they seemed to have exploded and were shattered. Lu Li sensed that the golden spear shadow had pierced Li Heng with an invisible ray of spear energy. A plum blossom mark appeared on Li Heng's chest armor. Clearly, Commander Lu didn't use his full strength. Otherwise, Li Heng would have been seriously injured, if not dead. Li Heng was knocked back for more than 300 miles, and so was Commander Lu. Commander Lu put away his spear and stood proudly with his hands clasped behind his back. On the other side, Li Heng's arrogant expression disappeared. He was a bit depressed. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and flew over. He bowed and clasped his hands. Commander is mighty. Li Heng has lost. Thank you for showing mercy. Good. Commander Lu nodded and said, Li Heng, from today on, you are the deputy commander of the number 5 team. I hope you will fulfill your duties and not let us down. We are the strongest team. Li Heng bowed again and said, I will not let you down. I will die with no regrets. Li Heng retreated and found a place to sit down and heal his wounds. The martial artists of the 5th Squad looked at him with different gazes. Just now, Li Heng had used his formidable combat strength to conquer them. Li Heng's position as the vice commander could be considered as stabilizing. Commander Lu turned to Lu Li and said, "Lu Li, it is your turn now." Lu Li walked out from the crowd and flew to the sky. The entire place was filled with excitement. Lu Li seemed to be at the Emperor Realm. An Emperor Realm warrior becoming the deputy commander was above them. No matter who it was, they wouldn't accept it. Not even if Lu Li was the illegitimate son of the deputy master. The number 5 team was the strongest team. They didn't need a good-for-nothing, let alone a good-for-nothing deputy commander. Wan Shi and Lady Mo Qianqian's eyes glowed. They knew Lu Li was strong, but they hadn't seen him fight with his full strength. This Commander Lu was so strong that Lu Li couldn't hide his full abilities. Lu Li was said to be invincible below the consummate realm. Could he defeat this Commander Lu as well? Haha. Luan Shi remembered what Commander Lu said. She suddenly smiled and sent a message to Mo Qianqian. "Qianqian, if Lu Li can kill Commander Lu, will he become the new commander? By that time, we will have a better life here." "I don't think so." Mo Qianqian looked at Lu Li and said, "This Commander Lu is strong, and he is a killer in the immortal region. I don't think Lu Li is a match for him." Chapter 33:21. Standing in midair, Lu Li asked, "Commander Lu, you must have been injured by the impact just now, right? Do you need some rest?" Commander Lu snorted coldly and said, "It's just a small injury, nothing serious. Are you ready?" Lu Li nodded and said, "Commander Lu, you can do it at any time." "Okay." Commander Lu flew over. Everyone was looking at Lu Li, wondering how he would deal with it. Lu Li, however, vanished in a thin air after a white glare. He was nowhere to be found. Stealth skill. Xiaomo's skill was so powerful that nobody below the level of a warrior at the complete realm could see him. Only warriors at that level, who had a close relationship with heaven and earth, could sense Lu Li's presence through heaven and earth. Commander Lu was stunned. The moment Lu Li vanished, Commander Lu used psychic power to check, but he found nothing. He was not the only one. All the onlookers released psychic power and used their own special skills to search for Lu Li. However, none of the warriors could find Lu Li. He felt he had vanished from this small world. After a while, many warriors looked at each other, speechless. How could they fight when Lu Li was gone? Commander Lu didn't even use one move. Didn't mean he had passed or not. If he didn't pass, how could he fight when he couldn't even find Lu Li? "Hoi!" Commander Lu shouted in a deep voice. His spear trembled, and then he crazily stabbed in all directions. In just an instant, it felt as though he had stabbed tens of thousands of times, and he was surrounded by spear shadows. Even though Commander Lu could not find Lu Li, he had a feeling that Lu Li was hiding nearby. Therefore, Commander Lu resorted to a stupid but practical method, which was to attack in a wide range to force Lu Li out. However, after a round of attacks, the space around him was torn apart and then recovered. Still, there was no sign of Lu Li. Lu Li felt he had vanished from this world. He could not find Lu Li no matter how hard he tried. Commander Lu pulled a long face. Lu Li had humiliated him too much. He, a commander, could not even hurt a hair of the deputy commander. What would his subordinates think of him? He once again released a killer move. His spear danced, and then with him, as the center, a super terrifying spatial shockwave emerged. These shockwaves radiated in all directions like raging waves. Mo Qianqian, Wan Shi, and the rest were all forced back thousands of miles. Their bodies were constantly shaking like duckweed in a huge wave, unable to control their own bodies. This move was not lethal, but it could detect everything nearby. However, after the shockwave, there was still no sign of Lu Li. Chief Lu looked even more awful. At this moment, he finally understood why Deputy Master would give Lu Li the title of Deputy Chief. Lu Li deserved the title because of his art of concealment. Buzz, while Chief Lu was at his wit's end, space trembled and then Lu Li came out. Lu Li and Commander Lu looked at each other. Commander Lu made a move. A dark shadow came out, pierced through the void at a horrifying speed and appeared in front of Lu Li. Boom. Lu Li was smashed away. The armor on his chest cracked. There was a hole with blood coming out. Lu Li seemed to be injured. Lu Li was knocked away for more than 300 miles. Blood came out from his mouth. He flew back, bowed and said, "Commander, you are so mighty. I admire you." "Good." Chief Lu nodded and said, "Okay, Lu Li, you survived 3 moves for me. From now on, you will be the deputy commander of the number 5 team." "Thank you, Chief Lu." Lu Li expressed his gratitude again. The other warriors here were confused. Why wasn't Lu Li shaken out before? Why was Lu Li exposed when the spatial ripples weakened? Also, the last move Commander Lu used didn't seem to be powerful. Why didn't he use the move he used to attack Li Hong? Ha. Luan Shi and Mo Qianqian looked at each other. They understood. Lu Li was giving Commander Lu a way out on purpose. Otherwise, Lu Li would not have been knocked out. Chief Lu understood this. Therefore, he used a random move to complete the promise of 3 moves. Lu Li showed respect to Chief Lu. Naturally, Chief Lu returned the favor by not using his most powerful move. Both sides had gained face. The fight was over. Chief Lu led all the warriors back to the battle zone. He announced the appointment of Lu Li and Li Hong and introduced Mo Qianqian and the other new warriors to them. He also told Lu Li and Li Hong about the situation of the team. Each team had 300 warriors. Clearly, the number 5 team was not big enough. There were only 250 warriors, including Mo Qianqian and the others. There were only 260 warriors. There used to be 2 deputy commanders, but they died more than a year ago. Strong. This was the only thing Lu Li and Li Hong exclaimed after they learned about the situation of the number 5 team. There were about 200 warriors in the number 5 team, and all of them were Saint Emperors. Clearly, they were powerful Saint Emperors. Chief Lu also said that the number 5 team was the most powerful, surpassing the number 1 team, the former Ace team. Of course, another reason was that the number 1 team suffered a great loss in the war more than a year ago. More than half of their elite warriors were lost, and they hadn't been replenished yet. There were 6 teams in this battle zone, including the regular auxiliary warriors. There were 2,000 warriors in total. Even though there were only 2,000 warriors, the Palace of Immortals Inquires had always focused on elite warriors. The 2,000 warriors could be compared to 200,000 regular warriors. The master of the Palace of Immortals Inquires once said that he would rather use the resources of 100 warriors to train 1 powerful warrior. No matter how many regular warriors there were, they could not be as powerful as 1 powerful warrior. All the forces understood this. But regular warriors didn't need to spend too many resources. Also, the Immortal region was too easy to recruit. It wouldn't be a pity if they died. All the other forces, big or small, would recruit regular warriors as warriors. At least in terms of numbers, wouldn't they? They could have millions of warriors, but the Palace of Immortals Inquires only had a few thousand warriors. There were not only warriors from the Palace of Immortals Inquires, but also those from the Hall of Martial Arts and the Milky Way Society. The other 2 forces had more warriors. The Milky Way Society had 300,000 warriors in total. The Hall of Martial Arts had less, but still 80,000. The Palace of Immortals Inquires only sent 2,000 warriors. It sounded shabby, but the Milky Way Society and the Hall of Martial Arts didn't dare to belittle the 2,000 warriors. For example, the number 5 team of Immortals Inquires had more than 200 Saint Kings, and many of them were at the middle stage of Saint King. This was a powerful force that could defeat tens of thousands of regular warriors. Go and settle down first. Chief Lu called over a warrior and asked him to take Lu Li and the others to settle down and rest for a day. When the time came, Chief Lu would take Lu Li and Li Hong to meet the commander of this battle zone, the 3rd master of the Palace of Immortals Inquires. Speak to the 3rd master in a polite manner. When Lu Li and the others left, Chief Lu suddenly said to them, "The chief master rarely shows up. The 2nd master is more amiable, but the 3rd master is famous for his bad temper. If you provoke him, you might be hacked to death by him with a single slash." Chapter 33:22. A day later, Lu Li and Li Heng were taken to meet Third Master. This Third Master was a hot-tempered one. He looked ferocious and had a violent personality. He had red hair, triangular eyes, a nose like an elephant's, and a braid on the back of his head. Lu Li and Li Heng were very careful and polite. This Third Master was not surprised by Lu Li's realm. He just gave them a casual look and said something before he let Lu Li and Li Heng go. Back at the camp, Luther assigned Lu Li and Li Heng their subordinates. The deputy commander was qualified to lead the team. The fifth team now had more than 260 members. Luther personally led 150, while the remaining 110 were divided between Lu Li and Li Heng. Luther was not selfish. He didn't leave a bunch of great Emperor Realm warriors for Lu Li and Li Heng. He gave them more than 20 Saint Emperors and Mo Qianqian, Wan Shi, and the other 7 Saint Emperors. Luther didn't force the 26 Saint Emperors to join anyone. Instead, he let them choose. After all, Saint Emperors were proud. If they were not convinced, they would not be able to command and would be in big trouble if they disobeyed orders. Not surprised, Yu Yang and Wan Shi chose Lu Li at once. Mo Qianqian went behind Lu Li while Lady Li followed Li Heng without hesitation. Young Master Chong and the others went behind Lu Li and some went behind Li Heng. As for the other Saint Emperors, most of them chose Li Heng. They watched Lu Li's fight with Luther and had some understanding of Li Heng's abilities. They recognized Li Heng's realm, defense, and offensive abilities. On the other hand, Lu Li only showed his art of concealment and nothing else. Saint Emperors were proud. Lu Li was only at the Great Emperor realm, and he was just a young boy. Asking them to follow a little doll, wasn't that sending them to their deaths? In the end, 18 of the 26 Saint Emperors chose Li Heng, and only 8 followed Lu Li. The rest were at the peak of the Great Emperor realm, and 10 were at the later stage. After making his choice, Luther had them take him to the training ground and think of a way to fuse them together. That way, they would be able to unleash their greatest battle strength. Lu Li and Li Heng each led a team to a martial arts practice field. Lu Li went to one with 56 powerful warriors. Admittedly, the warriors of the Palace of Immortals' inquiries were disciplined. Even though some of the powerful warriors here might have some doubts about Lu Li's abilities, they all stood in an orderly manner, saying nothing and waiting for Lu Li's instructions. They were disciplined. Lu Li looked around and finally fixed his eyes on the 8 Saint Emperors. He shouted, "I know some of you are not convinced that I'm the deputy commander. It's okay. If you're not convinced, you can step out now. If you can defeat me, I'll let you have the deputy commander position." There were many ways to get along with his subordinates. Lu Li chose the simplest way, which was to beat them into submission. He wanted this group of people to have absolute trust in him and listen to his orders without the slightest bit of doubt. Otherwise, in the upcoming battle, it was very likely that it would affect the overall situation. The group of Saint Kings looked at each other and didn't move. Sun Feather, Mo Qianqian, Wan Shi, and the other young master were well aware of Lu Li's strength. They didn't want to come here to be tortured. Who knew how many Saint Kings had died to Lu Li's hands? If Lu Li wanted to kill them, he could do it instantly. The 4 remaining Saint Kings looked at each other. In the end, the strongest late Saint King stood out and bowed. "Please enlighten me, Commander Lu." "All right." Lu Li nodded slightly. "Attack me. If you can harm even a hair on me, I'll let you have my position." Lu Li's arrogance had angered the late Saint King. Without any hesitation, he leapt into the air and shot toward Lu Li. He extended a hand, and a dazzling light lit up on it. It constantly changed, turning into a fist, a palm, and a claw. A chilling aura emanated from his hand and enveloped Lu Li. Lu Li remained in the air without moving. The hand grew closer and closer. When it was several hundred meters away, Lu Li's eyes lit up with 2 beams of golden light, which entered the late Saint King's body. Afterward, Lu Li moved. With a flash, he swung his hand gently toward the late Saint King's chest. Ugh! Apart from Yu Yang and Luan Shi, the other warriors were dumbfounded. This was because the late Saint King stopped moving after Lu Li's eyes lit up. Afterward, Lu Li's gentle hand landed on his chest. The armor on his chest exploded, and the skin on his chest began to corrode. The late Saint King cried out and fell to the ground with a flash. Instant kill. A late Saint King was killed by Lu Li in an instant. Many warriors present were in disbelief. Was Lu Li really that strong? Was he an expert infinitely close to great perfection? That shouldn't be the case. If he was an expert of this level, how could he be a vice commander? Even a commander's position was too low. The late Saint King had actually woken up when Lu Li's hand landed on his chest. He could feel the terrifying and overbearing energy from Lu Li's hand. He stared at the rotting flesh on his chest in shock. If Lu Li had not stopped just then, he would be dead already. Plop! After falling down, he did not have time to tend to his wounds. He knelt on one knee and cried out, "Thank you for showing mercy, Commander Lu. Yuan is convinced. Tend to your wounds first." Lu Li waved his hand and asked the remaining Saint Kings, "Is there anyone else who is not convinced?" Plop! The Saint Kings all knelt on one knee and shouted, "We are convinced." Yu Yang, Mo Chantian, and Luanqi smiled. They felt honored. Lu Li was famous for killing people. These Saint Kings were asking for trouble. Since the Saint Kings were convinced, the other great emperors were convinced as well. They all knelt on one knee. Lu Li waved his hand and said, "Get up. There is no need to kneel in the future. At the end of the day, it is fate that brought us together. We don't have to go through the formalities, but there are some rules that must be followed. If you break any of them, don't blame me for being heartless." A glint of coldness rose in Lu Li's eyes. A strong killing intent spread out from him, freezing the atmosphere. Lu Li said with ferocious intent, "On the battlefield, my orders cannot be questioned. My orders must be carried out immediately. If you don't listen to me or don't try your best, you will die. Secondly, never abandon your comrades. When they are in trouble, you must save them as long as you are safe. Even if they are dead, you must bring their bodies back." Yes, all the warriors bowed and accepted the order. Lu Li divided them into groups. Each Saint King would lead several great emperors to form a team. Lu Li also asked them to form a battle formation. The Saint Kings would be the main attacker, and the great emperors would assist them to attack, defend, or distract the enemies. Practice. Later, each team will practice against each other. Lu Li waved his hand. Each Saint King would lead their team members to one side. Lu Li's order to each Saint King was to coordinate with their strengths and have the great emperors help them in the fight. They should do what could help them the most. Each of you Saint Kings is the tip of a spear. You are only responsible for attacking, moving forward and forward, piercing through the enemies in front of you. You, the great emperors, are the spear's shaft, the shield. Your mission is to do everything you can to help your team leader kill his way through. Don't let your team leader be hurt. Don't let him stop. You must help him move forward. Move forward until there are no more enemies in front of you. Then you will win. Lu Li's voice was heard by all the warriors. They felt their blood was boiling. Previously, they did not have this concept. They've been fighting on their own. Lu Li's fighting style was novel and seemed to be more lethal. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.